Hello guys, welcome back to Spec Chat. We're on to episode 3 now. Been a little bit of a break since the last one, but we are back. Everyone's ready to go. Got an absolute monster of an episode today. We've got NAC 5 to talk about, Hera joining Gamer Legion. Going to talk about the NAC meetup. Gonna have to rewind a little bit. We've got the Icon DLC to discuss. We've got some tournament shoutouts. And we're going to look ahead to 2024 and cover Red Bull. Going to keep this nice and short and sweet. Enjoy the episode. Have fun. Okay, welcome back everybody to the Spec Chat. We're now on to episode 3. It's been a while since I've met up, I think about 6 weeks or something now, so if you have came back, I'm sure you've been waiting a while. Thanks for coming back. Welcome to new listeners as well, of course. I am joined today by my lovely co-host, that is Young Panda, all the way from South Africa. Panda, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Things are a bit hectic here at my side at the moment, but we keep on watching AoE, right?
Well, there's no shortage of it. And we also have our little friend sheet. That's Mr. Tarzus, who's been jet setting or traveling a bit in the last weeks. Tarzus, welcome back.
Hello. Thank you.
You're sounding very fresh with your new microphone today. No headset mic. People are going to be very, very happy.
I hope so.
Very, very positive. Well, it's probably going to be a very big episode for us three and everybody else listening. So use the timestamps at the bottom if you don't want to listen to the full thing. When I was at NEC, there was a few people that said, "Oh, it's too long," but it's not meant to be something we're trying to cover in an hour 15 or an hour 30. So either go for a long dog walk, put it on in your car drive, or split it up into a few days, or just don't listen to the bits you don't want to. But we shouldn't really say that. But use the timestamps at the bottom, makes it much easier to navigate through the episode. And if you do enjoy it, please leave a like. You can subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, leave a comment. It's good for the engagement, and then give us a little bit of feedback as well. Would be much appreciated. Anyway, let's get into the very first topic of the day. It's going to be NEC 5, the last one from Nelly, the last hurrah, the farewell. And we're just going to quickly rewind and go back to the qualifiers, so we didn't actually get to talk about them. And there was a few major talking points that we're just going to touch on very briefly. And then first off, it was probably MBL and that King Snipe, with MBL crashing out to Mihai in the most kind of disastrous fashion, and honestly in the most kind of MBL fashion. What do you think, guys? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, definitely. It's not the first time it happened to him.
And the King Snipe this is something that's happened before as well, right? Like Nelly mentioned that he's done it, and I think it was against Lix, and Lix has got some sort of nickname.
Yeah, so like it has happened a few times, but I think MBL, I think the last time it happened to him was during the early days of the Escape events on HD, where he played Water Nomad against Viper. And it was Water Nomad registered or something like that, and he got his King walled in and just battered down by villagers. So yeah, not the first time, and it was the final of the tournament as well. Maybe the final game as well.
Brutal.
It was the final game. I just popped into my head, like I saw it.
Yeah.
And
yeah, not the first time MBL lost his king.
Yeah, and it kind of transpired because he lost his scout really early in the game, and he wasn't scouting with his king early in the game either. So then you're kind of left with a situation, I only have a king now to scout, and once it's into feudal age, the scout of course gets a big massive buff in terms of speed, so Mihai chased it down, and there's meant to be some sort of like mechanic that's well known, but MBL wasn't too happy about. Once the scout starts attacking the king, it kind of like pushes it to the one direction. Is that a good descriptive, Panda?
I think
I think it cancels the king's current task, so to say.
Yeah, so like what MBL was saying is that he tasked the king to walk back home, but every time the king receives a hit, it cancels out the order to walk back, and so the king just like does like a few side steps,
Like a
And
villager
so-
does when it gets
Yeah,
attacked.
and so since the scout is now faster than the king, it can chase the king down, and MBL just forgot that the king, like MBL was assuming that the king would go home, which probably would happen if it was still in Dark Age. But since the scout was now faster, then it could catch up and again prevent the king from
Yeah,
moving back. And since MBL wasn't babysitting the king, that happened.
it was a tragic way to go out. But credit to Mihai, who played very well in both the qualifiers. Didn't end up making the main event, but a good positive feeling for him. Who I think it was just after this he said he was not going to be going full time anymore, which is kind of like such a wild contrast of getting like one of your biggest results and then saying, okay, I'm not going full time, because he's quite transparent about the money and whatnot he was earning, and said it's not going to be good enough. So that side is a shame, but he says he's still going to be competing, so should be fine for him.
Yeah.
The other.
I mean, yeah,
Sorry, go ahead, Tarsus.
he lost in the qualifying match against Jordan, who was in very good shape. So yeah, that's probably his best performance to date, I think, being very close to making the main event.
Yeah, I would say so. It was a very solid overall performance from him.
My only comment on that is, who sends the king out to scout after the opponent reaches feudal age? That's just like asking for trouble. That was what I was thinking, because I was watching the king on the minimap. It just like started walking out. I was like, this is gonna end bad.
Yeah,
Get like that feeling. It just screams bad luck.
it's
Something bad will happen.
it's a lot of risk. It is a lot of risk. But he did lose a scout in Dark Age, so you may be feeling like you have to do it because you don't have any other option, or either that you're just gonna have to not scout. He would have been better not scouting, potentially. Well, he wouldn't have, because he wouldn't have died. But Mihai did win that one, then got knocked out in the last round of the qualifiers. Other major names missing out the main event: Barles, Suto, and Nikov, who made it to NAC 4. Didn't get it back to NAC 5 this time. Doubt getting the best of them this time. And the Lord actually made it. Shakily, should I say.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty strong performance from Doubts. I guess Nikov, he lost to Barles in the first qualifier. Actually, Barles, that you mentioned, was very close to beating Taro in the first qualifier. Ended up losing to freaking Andy in the second one, not making the top 10. But yeah, I think it all showed that how close the level is between the guys that are between, I don't know, like 9 to 16 position. And so on a given day, everyone can beat everyone probably. There's a few other names that come to mind. Sebastian had a very good performance in the first qualifier. Lost to Sito in the second one.
He had the heartbreaking castle, right?
Yeah.
Oh god.
That was
a moment.
Indeed.
And just see, even saying 9 to 16, I would actually go beyond that and say probably from about the 6 to 16 range, I can see just about anyone beating each other on the right day. So like outside of like your major 4, and whoever you have at 5 or 6 can probably still potentially lose. Maybe not towards the 16 range, but the other guys. It's very competitive outside of that top 4, and now we've got some questions about some other players that are in that top 4, but we'll be touching on them very soon. And should we move on to the main event? I think that's...
Yeah.
I feel like that's fine. So, Tarsus, do you want to start us off in this one?
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, the main event... so 10 players won eventually by Hera, who won his 5th S-tier tournament in a row against Mr. Yu in the final. We can talk about those 2 players later. But yeah, like we can start with the group stage and maybe the things that stood out. I think there's maybe 2 players whose performances were pretty unexpected in the group stage. I think for me, the main standouts are Leary, who lost 4 matches, ended up in ninth position, didn't make the playoff. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there was Jordan, who fresh out of Gamer Legion, won 3 out of 5 sets, finished top 4, and made the round of 6 of the tournament, starting with a pretty dominant 3-0 against Mr. Yo. So yeah, what do you guys think about either Jordan or Leary or any other performance that stands out to you guys in the group stage?
Panda, do you want to touch on Jordan, and then I can touch on Leary, perhaps?
Yeah, Jordan had a really, like Tarsa says, a really strong start against Yo 3-0ing. But yeah, all his wins were convincing. They all were 3-0s. The other 2 being against Leary and Andy, and maybe like him being a bit less full-time AoE now is actually a good thing. So because he's more he can concentrate his time in the game a lot more, more specific. Like I'm preparing for this tournament and that, and that's making him play sharper and yeah, it's a.
I think maybe being relaxed from the pressure of
That as
having
well.
to perform, having to stream, having to make money through the stream is lifting off the pressure. You mentioned the fact that he's not full time. I think even more than that, during the tournament, he was working remotely in the morning and then playing his sets in the evening, which is crazy.
I would never be able to do that.
I didn't even know he
No.
was doing that. Yeah, that is crazy.
That's dedication. Both like
Yeah, apparently he had like a light schedule and he was able sometimes to just like just go on meetings and stuff and but yeah, that's pretty impressive that he was able to do that. And yeah, really strong performance. Eventually he lost to Mr. Yo in the round of 6, but yeah, still top 6 finish for him without being full time. That's a really strong performance. So Paradox, do you want to brush on Lear's performance now?
Yeah, so Leary finishing towards the bottom of the table in ninth, which I think was a major shock, not just for us 3, but probably everyone in the community, including the players there as well. Wasn't something I were expecting. I've just touched about being like top 4 players. I think everyone has maybe said Leary's a top 4 player. Is he still going to be one going forward? It's a bit of a question. But Leary, typically someone that always gets invited to all the major events. Still has an invite for Hidden Cup, which is of course coming round. But if he's not going to be getting results, he certainly won't be receiving automatic invites in the future, which might actually help him, because he looked a little bit out of practice, in my opinion, and certainly something that was kind of be like the narrative surrounding him was being alluded to is like, one, with the civs getting added to the game, he probably doesn't have a bit like as much of a grip than the other players that play more. And the second thing was the kind of crossbow pathing that it seemed like crossbows were just not as much of a thing. So we go from like these crazy situations where it's like, oh, crossbows are OP, they're too good in the game, knights do nothing, and then like literally right now it's like, oh, crossbows do nothing, everyone's making knights. All within like all within like a couple of months, and it seems to be like we're aiming for a mid ground there, and we're not really finding it as of yet. But yeah, we went into that round 5, and I was told a lot of the players weren't really happy with that round 5 in the Swiss system at all. But Weary and Hart had to end up playing first, because that could have been one series. If it was left to the end of the day, there could have been a little bit of, it would have opened questions. I'm not saying players would have done it, but in terms of like game and results to ensure certain players get through. But I think Weary not making it into the top 8, it was probably the deserved result for everybody else. Or in terms of like, I feel like other people performed better than Weary through the week. I was disappointed, but he did have hard games.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think maybe it will help him. Like maybe it's like a wake up call, like losing this. So he went from making the final of NEC 4, lost against Hera in the 5-4 series, very close, to not even making the playoff of NEC 5 a year later. So yeah, like a lot of question marks on his shape, probably the state of the pathing and the game at the moment, also neutralizing his best strength. But still, yeah, I'm thinking for a player of his caliber, maybe this is like a wake up call, and he has ego. He wants to do well in those events, and now maybe he's gonna be better prepared for the next ones.
Yeah, I hope so. Because obviously he's got bags of talent. But always a question mark with Leary has been like, how invested into the game is he? And he's probably,
Yeah.
out of all the top pros, you're probably going to say Leary is the least. So I hope he doesn't. I hope he doesn't kind of like let's have an image of a flame right now, and if the flame's kind of dying down, like I hope it doesn't completely go, but I think that chance is kind of there.
Yeah, and I think he also has a unique playstyle. It's different from Viper, different from Hera, different from Yo. So and Tato as well. So I think the scene is better with him at his best because
For
he
sure.
has some of the most spectacular gameplay in the world when he's at his best. So yeah, hopefully he can uh kind of come back strong and motivated. That would be awesome.
Hmm.
It's gonna win Hidden
Uh
Cup 5. Bold prediction. You hit it here, guys.
Oh my god.
First.
Sounds good. Sounds
Oi oi
good.
oi.
All right. Moving on, we have two other players to talk about in this tournament. So another one that's and started pretty slow, but then kind of got his groove as the tournament went on. Is Mr. Yo. So started the tournament with like a 3-0 beating against Jordan, and then made it all the way to the finals where he lost against Hera 5-2 in the end. So yeah, Yo not having the best start to the tournament, losing 3-0 against Jordan, then beating ACCM 3-2, then losing to Teto again, before eventually beating Leary and Andy to make to the playoff, and then having to find his way from the round of 8 to the finals. Yo is often described as a player who gets better as the tournament goes on. What do you think could be the reason for that? Is there anything about your style that makes him better in like higher stakes or like in later stages of the tournament?
I think he just practiced a lot while he was there, and he got like so many ideas. But I also think he has very good like mental resolve, because if you remember in the what's it, the round before the semifinals against Jordan, he ran his king into Jordan's castle, and
Yeah.
he looked shook. And to come back from that and win 4-2 for the final result, I think is really impressive, because like you could see in the webcam, right? He was like, oh damn, what did I just do? And then he then they played Outcrop next, and it was it Hindustanis against Vietnamese, and just kind of got in his groove, and it, he
Yeah.
cruised from there basically, which was good for him at least.
Yeah, 4-2 result in the end against Jordan, including the loss of the king on Copenhagen. So it's like a 4-1 basically. Very dominant performance, I would say.
Takes a lot of mental strength to like not let that kind of moment get to you, which
Yeah.
don't know if we can say that for all top players, you know? I remember when I interviewed Yo, I was really impressed with like I asked him like a couple of questions. I was like, were you worried at this moment? I was like, if it was for the Nations Cup final, he's like, no. Just like a very blunt, straight answer, but that's usually what his answers are like. But he seems I think, yeah, the mental strength is very, 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 very strong from Yo. and it
Yeah.
and it showed.
So yeah, I think an interesting stat about him is that it's his first loss in the final of an S tier event. I think in the DE era, or maybe like even since he had won every single final at an S tier of S tier that he had played before. So
Yeah,
Aramis Cup, Resurgence, Open Classic, and Red Bull Wallow. He had won all 4 of them. So
his
he loses
last
in the earlier rounds, but he wasn't losing in finals before. But yeah, Hera was able to stop him this time.
his
Pretty
last
convincingly.
loss was against Viper in 2015 in the final. The
With
WSVG.
Maldives. Yeah,
WSVG. I don't
and
know where
he
that
had like
was.
he had like a 2-0 lead in this one. And then
Yeah.
apparently he refused to play Nomad, which was his home map, because he felt like that would have been cheap. And so but that let Viper come back.
What an absolute chat.
All right. Yeah. Very strong performance from Yo. But ultimately, it was not him who would take the event. It was Hera. So Hera winning NAC 4 and defending the title to win NAC 5, and with this wins his 5th S tier tournament in a row. A streak that started at NAC 4 in March of last year. So Hera finished 2nd of the group stage, only losing a match that didn't have any stakes against Viper, and then storming off against Viper 5-0 in the semifinals and 5-2 in the finals. So it's pretty clear Hera is the best player in the world right now. There's a lot of big words that get thrown about around the GOAT status. Some people say he might be on course to become the GOAT. Some people say Viper is still far ahead in this category. I don't know. Do you guys have any stakes in that debate?
Let
Where
me
do you
kick.
stand there?
Yeah, let me kick this off. So I think his consistency at S tiers right now is just so impressive, and I think largely because if you compare the scene from I was gonna say 10 years ago, but even like 2-3 years ago, or just like before the 5 years ago, it has came on a lot, and there's a lot of top players trying to make it as the best, and it's very difficult to be the top dog when everyone's gunning for you, when there's so many other like up and coming players or other players that are trying to get that spot. I think it's fair to say that when Viper was dominant, the overall level probably wasn't as high, but in fairness, Viper at that time was winning like everything. It just wasn't like the S tiers, the big stuff. It was like
Yeah.
literally every tournament he touched, he would win.
Yeah. But my input in
Yeah,
this, at least, is Hera would, if like he and Viper are it's gonna be maybe a bit controversial, but like Hera and Viper are kind of like the modern goats, if you can put it like that. If you compare the S tier stuff since DE came out, Viper has won 9 S tier tournaments and Hera 8, so they're really close, neck and neck. So it's just maybe not the all-time GOAT, but at least for the DE era, I think Hera has got himself pretty well cemented for if we ever move past whatever's next, the extended edition or something. But
yeah. I think it's also the best streak of the DE era. Like he has won the last 5 S tier, and he has made the finals of the last 8 S tier. So that's very, very impressive streak, and I don't think anyone has won more than 2 in a row outside of him. Maybe no, Viper won only 2 in a row, and Leary as well.
yeah.
So yeah,
To play devil's advocate, I think the only thing holding him back in his current era is the Red Bull tourneys, not having any of them as of yet. Asterisk.
Yeah.
Which,
and he's very motivated to win one of those. So yeah, that will be very interesting to see.
So I think that's always the thing that people are going to bring up. It's like, well, you didn't win any of the Wallows, which are like they have been like the premier events in the last couple of years. And maybe it's maybe fair to an argument in a certain sense, but it's always difficult to compare eras. It's like comparing Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Like played in like
and especially in something like AoE where there's no calendar, there's no guarantee a tournament that happened once will happen again.
Yeah.
You don't have the same tournaments year after year, so that the landscape has changed immensely since the beginnings. I think it's almost impossible to compare different eras. I think the competition is at the highest it has ever been. Like you said, there's so many players now that are gunning for the top spots, and we said like anyone from 6 to 20 can probably beat anyone else on a good day. There's like a few players that are slightly ahead of the rest, but it's still very close. So I think the best now are the best they have ever been, but then you can only compare a player within the era they played in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that what Hera is doing right now is still immensely impressive and probably cementing himself as one of the contenders for being the greatest of all times. I think Viper is still ahead in terms of like just like sheer amount of time he dominated, and the fact that he's still competitive and like top 3 today. But yeah, we'll see how the future shapes up for Hera. Still probably the favorite for the few, like the clear favorite for the tournaments that will be played.
Every tournament he enters, especially the S tiers.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, Hera didn't really have his proper breakthrough until DE was released.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his breakthrough was NAC, right?
NAC 3.
Yeah.
He was a late addition to NAC 3. I think there was initially only 8 players, and Hera was invited at the last minute, which
he was actually invited
made
at the start.
People unhappy. And then he lost against Viper and then won everything else and made the finals.
Yeah, I was actually invited from the start, but then he declined it.
Yeah, he initially declined and then eventually said, yes, I want to come. And yeah.
I mean, kind of the rest is history now.
It's damn right.
Gone from strength to strength.
It's crazy when you think of that like upward trajectory and how he's went through it all. And it's really not that long ago.
Who knows? 4 years ago.
Yeah, like who knows what he's going to be in 4 years if it's if everything's still going to be going. If everything is still going to be going, is he still going to be as dominant as he is now? It kind of looks like there's not anyone that's going to interrupt him. So as long as his motivation's high and there's tournaments there, it could. I think he would definitely be in contention for that kind of the GOAT status.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what the future brings.
Spec Chat episode 88.
Yeah.
We're gonna revisit in 5 years, or that is way more than 5 years, 6.5, 7 years, or whatever it is.
Yeah, who knows? Anyway, I think we can maybe move on to the next talking points. NAC 5, the last NAC, potentially. So Neely has said his goodbyes, taken his last week of streaming, now is on a break. And yeah, ended his streaming and tournament organizing career with the bank, with the NAC 5. I think in numbers, like some quick numbers, so the total prize pool in the end was $73,000, with a huge contribution from the community. I'm not sure exactly what was Microsoft contribution. Maybe 50K or 40K, and then the rest was community funded, so at least 22K. Peak viewers, I think 50,000 with an average of 26,000, so pretty good viewership there. I'm not sure if it's a record for NEC, but it's pretty solid numbers.
I think it was.
I think it was. Yeah. It was. It
The
was.
whole week
that's great.
was really good. I think only like the first 2 or 3 days had less average viewership than NAC 4 final. From a quick check that I did. So it was like it went from strength to strength every day. Usually it drops off a bit like in the week, but this time it just every day kept on like, oh, let's go. It's better today than yesterday, and kept on going, which was really nice to see.
Yeah, and like I think it was completely deserved. Like the production value was really high. I think one of the things that I liked the most was when they shot some videos and they were showing extracts of the first NAC that was actually at Neil's flat. And now seeing how far we had come, like this NAC 5 ambience in the Gamer Legion house, the players in blue and red, crisp production, very high quality casting, lots of info. So like invited casters, T90, Dave, Dash, Memb, and obviously Neely was really great production and casting. Anything that stands out to you guys there? Maybe like a favorite casting duo?
Ooh, I could tell you my least favorite casting duo.
Oh, okay. I think that's good as well.
that Leary and Doubtcast was an absolute car crash of a series.
I don't think I think I tuned out of that one.
I was more watching it for like the hilarity of it. They would have like 20 seconds of like silence and then just have like a joke with each other. I'm like, what is going on? I was like, I'm glad this is only happening once. But it was like for the moment it happened, it was pretty funny.
I think it got better at some point, but yeah, initially it was a bit of a train wreck.
Yeah, I'm glad all the major names were there. I thought it was good that Mem was there, especially for the last one. I'm really glad that Dash was there, and I think despite not casting AOE like all the time, I thought it was like you can just tell that this guy does this for a living, you know. He's
so good at it.
He's very good at the whole hosting and creating narratives, and how he talks is very good. And
I think he was.
Sorry, it's not easy just jumping in and casting AOE if you're not doing it all the time. Like he has to wear he does stuff like for a lot of different games.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to think, do we have anyone else in AOE that really does that? Everyone's specialized.
I don't think we have anyone.
The only one in the AOE scene would be Killer Pigeon from AOE4.
Yeah. But apart from that, I don't think there's really anybody else. It's
so I think for Dash, he said that despite working on other games, AOE is the one he watches. So I think he probably watches a lot of casts, like probably T90, but also Mem, Neely, absorbs a lot of that, and then he's such a natural. He's just very good. But it's so impressive how he's able to, like, despite having like relatively like low level on average, he's always very good at like asking good questions, bounce off other pros. I think he's cast with Viper, which was really good. He was able to like fully utilize Viper's knowledge and ask the good questions. And that was the GL.Hera set. Yeah, he's such a delight.
I thought that was great that they two were on it as well, and like having Vipercast is something that's not gonna happen all the time, and it just happened to fall in a very good series. I think that was probably going to be one of my favorite duos, but I do love Dash and Hera together as well. I think they're great together.
Yeah.
I think Hera's a very good co-caster, especially
Yeah, Hera is great.
especially when he's with a good play-by-play caster. So someone that's just going to be like, saying what's happening in the game, and then Hera's going to come in and add the color. He's going to add some context, and I think he's super good at doing that.
Yeah, I think Hera pairs really well. Yeah, like with Dash, but also with T90 and Dave. I think the first day he guested with T90, the Viper against Heart set, and that was like a really good cast as well. Really enjoyed that.
He has like really good natural chemistry, like with a lot of people. Like Nelly, I enjoy him like casting with. I think it's good. He has a good co-caster.
Yeah, I think he has he has lots of energy and obviously very high knowledge. So I think that pairs well with a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Okay, so I think maybe the last thing we can talk about is maybe if there's any listeners that have for some reason missed NAC 5, and definitely you should come back and watch. There's maybe like a few, but if you have limited times, maybe we can talk about some of the best games, best sets that marked us during the event. So yeah, maybe Panda, do you want to start us there with any set that stands out to you?
Tough one.
Yeah.
Can I go for the lower hanging fruit? I'm first, right? So
sure.
Go for it.
Lower hanging fruit. Tato against Hera. That was a great set. Especially that if you have to watch one game from that series, go watch the arena game. There was lots of opinions about it. Who should have done what, and that, but it was. I think in the end, everyone would whatever answer you come up with, it would be wrong. It was just It was just one of those games.
And honestly, from that series, the Rocky Forest game was also very, very good.
Indeed.
Like that series in general was just very, very nice. And that was the one we just mentioned, casted by Dash and Viper. It was super good.
Probably what stood out. Actually didn't watch much of the last
the arena game was obviously very, very talked about. Lots of a very chaotic gameplay. But yeah, it was a great set there. I think every set with Taro was pretty good. The one I would, but the set I would personally want to talk about is the Viper against Doubt series in the round of 6. So Doubt had like a little bit of a rough start to the tournament. I think lost his first 3 sets, and then eventually pulled off 2 wins against Hart and ACCM, made it to the playoff, and got revenge against freaking Andy in the round of 8, and then took Viper to the 7th game in the round of 6.
After being 2-0.
Won the first 2 games.
Yeah.
He was leading 2-0. And then Viper came back. Then Doubt won against won Arena, like a masterful performance with Melee, and then eventually had like a good position in the final game as well. So that was another very great set. I think Viper said he was not entirely happy with his own level of play there, but also mentioned some things in as like Doubt and him have like a very similar play styles, and obviously they know each other by heart. They have played with each other for years now. So yeah, always a tough set against Doubt for Viper, and yeah, but that was a great set. So I would recommend.
Yeah, I met him outside the hotel that night. But I don't know what time it was. It was late though. It must have been about 1 or 2 a.m. And he says, "Yeah, I wasn't very happy with how I played today. I was just trying to pet his dog, man. But yeah." Trying to tell us what was going on. I was just quite happy just petting Justice. It's a cute dog.
I think I had lots to say about that about the map on that last one. I complained a lot.
The
The Doubt's map was just unfortunate.
African read
He had nothing. Yeah, he hadn't. If I remember correctly, like he had nothing to work with like how he was gonna wall his map, and he had to basically play really aggressive, and it does like you're probably not setting out to play like that. And Vipe had a better map, I would say, which it's rough when it happens, but it was still like a really really good game, and Doubt had the chances to take it, but yeah, I had my complaints there about it.
I think those two series are the most. I think they're the clear cut ones, and if you're gonna go for another one, I'd say it has to be the Tato versus Yo in the semi-final. Just for the manner of it. It was there's some good games there to watch back. For sure. Mr. Yo with Koreans on Copenhagen, man. He was absolutely cooking with this.
Yeah, and a fairly dominant performance as well. Looking at the score, even though he had lost against Tato in the group stage.
Yeah, and he played them against Jordan as well. When else did they play them? He played them somewhere else. Against ACCM. That's what it was. That was also a good fun series as well, where Yo won that one. But it was a 7-game thriller.
Yeah. And that was the deciding game, actually. So
that matchup always feels like it goes to the like Yo against ACCM always goes to the last
true,
game.
Yeah. And usually Yo wins.
Yeah. Okay, well I think
but yeah, so yeah.
We'll round that off then for NEC. The last one. Big Sag.
Yeah. Well, ending with a bang. I think Neely can really be proud of what he has achieved, especially considering the evolution of NEC from the inception of this crazy idea of 5 guys meeting up in an apartment to play Age of Empires to this like super professional event that it has become over the years. So yeah, it has been a staple of the competitive scene over the years. Sad to see it go, but what an amazing event it was.
Sure. Let's quickly touch on the kind of civs and the maps, which Panda will do, and then we can kind of go into our little sub-story here that did emerge from NEC 5, but everyone will be aware of it. Panda first.
Yeah. Some interesting stats here. Well, just to start it off, we had 5 civilizations that weren't played at all during the main event, at least. Bulgarian Scouts, Ethiopians, Sicilians, and Vikings, or with Bulgarian, Sicilians, and Vikings not even being picked by someone to play, and then not, which, I mean, that doesn't really, that's not really like unexpected. This is unnecessarily the best 1v1 civs these days. No. Maybe we would have seen Vikings a bit more if there was a pure water map, like more water than you'd get on Northern Isles.
Yeah. Which seems to be dominated by fires at the moment, so that's kind of bad for Vikings.
Yeah, that as well. I'd say maybe a slight surprise, no Sicilians.
Well, we didn't have
played Hero there.
Yeah, well, you didn't make main event.
That is true. I guess everyone's over that part of the experiment. But I would say of the 4 civs, that one's the only one's like surprising that they didn't get played maybe once or twice with somebody trying something. But other than that, like I don't think anyone would be surprised if if those 5 civs weren't played a lot. Maybe the big surprise would have been if they got played 5 times, given the current meta and the maps that were available.
Mm-hmm.
Then our best performing civs were Armenians, which was, I would say, kind of a bit of a surprise, but also not, because they just got like a buff patch ago where the technologies at the mule cart got the increase that they do got buffed more for the villagers. So I think that showed a bit. Like they had, they won 7 of their 9 games, which is pretty solid. And then we had Mayans. They are Mayans, right? It's they've been dominating the game since they came out with the Age of Conquerors expansion. So
Pretty
and
much.
you expect them to always be there. As Franks had a solid win rate, but not the highest play rate. Actually, I'm a slight surprise because like Rocky Forest kind of is a good map for them on paper, and same with
Langanati.
Langana. Yeah, because you have started with like 10 or 12 berry bushes around
Yeah.
your TC.
Yep.
And they did have a solid run in the qualifiers. I think Mihai who used them to great effect on that map. And then Turks went undefeated, but that's a bit of a surprise. I think in recent years they fell off a bit on Arena. Not necessarily because they are worse, but
Been power crept a little bit.
just like yeah, and winning all their games, including against civs that some would maybe consider better. Like they beat Burgundians. I remember one game. And also to add to that is like the Janissaries got nerfed by losing one range. It was kind of at a lot like the big power spike, right? With the 8 range Janissaries in Castle Age. Now it's only 7, so they're a bit more beatable. And then not an overall best performer necessarily, but Malians were really dominating on Langanati. They won 5 of their 6 games there. So while they went 5-4 and all the other maps, so they're kind of like the standout performer in a single map, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Then just following up on that, Malians were actually the most played civ.
Quite a versatile civ, so maybe it makes sense across the maps. Like they can do quite a bit. They have good cav, they can play water, they have a decent eco because all the wood savings.
And the extra
they've always been great on a hybrid, and now they're back at being very good on open as well. So I think it makes sense.
And then if we look at the maps, we had the most banned map at Canberra 21 times.
Sag.
So I think players didn't want. It's a bit out wild.
It's a bit awkward
compared to the other. Yeah, you have a smaller map.
But the games I usually saw on the map were always very entertaining.
They were quite.
They were something.
Yeah. Especially that Doubt Andy game.
That Doubt Andy game is so good. It was just wild.
And then to continue with the maps, we had Brood War. It was the only map that got picked. Got picked and banned more than 10 times, which is a bit surprising. But it also, I think, it shows a bit like love-hate relationship overall with it. Some players don't want to play it, others did want to play it. So I think that's actually a good story in coming out from that, because also myself didn't really necessarily like the map, but it delivered some good games, I think.
I enjoyed the games on it.
Also had that famous incident. What was it, Yo, who mangled his own scouts or something?
I think no, he had the attack round on. Sorry, he had the attack round on Jordan's, did he not? And then because he had like the instant replay, and then did he like then end up attack grounding his own stuff? I think it was something like that. But I remember watching the games and they had like the instant replay. I had like the attack ground right in the middle of the scouts. It was just like, oh, beautiful.
Yeah. But yeah, so the map kind of produced, but maybe as a quick side question to that, maybe we need more maps like that. Maybe not every map in a tournament, but like one kind of map like that.
In terms of like its design and like the TCs, so like the TCs would spawn in different spots.
yeah, so it's like a fixed map, and then you can spawn in different locations on that, and it would be in theory always the same, but it does promote scouting as well, which is
I think
something.
I think it's a good solution to fixed TC maps, which aren't they're not my favorite.
Could be something to explore.
So like
In the future.
yeah, so a lot of people don't like them because essentially, you know, like once you play enough games, you really know what to do, and you don't have to scout as much. You should just know what to expect. The only thing you really be scouting for is to find out what the opponent will be doing. But then by that time, the meta is usually completely figured out, so you probably don't even need to scout. You probably have a good idea. It's
Pretty much.
yeah. I think
And
the game seemed pretty varied from what I watched, to be honest, on it as well. Just to close that off on Brood War.
yeah,
If I was Nelly, I'd be happy with it.
yeah, I think it delivered.
Yeah,
yeah. Despite, like, at least in my initial reservations about the map.
Mm-hmm.
And then to finish off the stats, as Enclosed got only picked once as a home map, which is usually, at least from what I understood, at that level, players kind of like it. I know Viper likes it, Hera likes it, Nelly even calls it the best map ever created. Although I don't know if he's serious about that.
I think
he always says it.
Yeah, I think anything that comes out of Nelly's mouth is almost satirical or sarcastic.
Yeah, but at least Nelly, at least he likes the map, whether it is the best map ever created, in his opinion, might be. We might question. And I was like, I would say I was a bit surprised, because I think it's something you'd see at that level quite a lot, and it's very standard in a sense, like what people will go for. But I think what makes the map good is there's more gold than on your like standard Arabia
Dude,
game.
There's so much gold. The game's going forever.
Yeah. True. And then it's like there's a good chance that both civs get to their power comp, which is always nice to see, and it's not necessarily the game is just won by the first player to best use their power spike in Imperial Age or something, which is something I appreciate from Enclosed, at least. And it's not maybe it's snowballing for some players, but like you can expand nicely and lots of resources to take.
Yep.
Did have one bit sussy generation for freaking Andy against Doubt. He had no close, like those mini woodlines that spawn on the outside. He had none of them. And it really, I think it set him back in his strategy, though I do not think it would have made a difference if he had it. But other than that, yeah, that's basically all I have to say for the maps and this and stats.
All right, nice one.
We're back.
I guess we'll be back in Hidden Cup 5. We'll see what we can spot. But those ones, our other major story coming out of NAC 5 was, of course, Hera moving from AM. I don't know if you can really call AM well, you can call them a team, but you can't call them an organization. He's left AM, and he has now went for pastures now, and he has joined GL, aka Gamer Legion. Tarzus, do you wanna talk us through this one, because there's a lot to really unpack?
Yeah, sure. So like the timeline of events is essentially Jordan and Neely announcing that they're taking a step back from the content creation side. Well, I mean, Neely retiring and Jordan leaving the full-time style to get back to work and playing on the side. Essentially are dropped by Gamer Legion, or their contracts end with the organization and they leave the team. And then it is teased that Gamer Legion has an announcement, and then revealed by Hera.
Hang on.
By Hera.
Well, so Hera said he had an announcement, and then GL were starting to then hint at things as well.
Yeah. I think that's probably like the correct timeline. So like obviously there was like lots of speculation. Is GL adding a new member? Who could that be? And then obviously like there was this jersey leak by Hera wearing the Gamer Legion jersey before the proper announcement is made. Uh some people, maybe some Paradox 303 guy on Twitter hinting at it, and then Hera hiding comments, everything. Anyway, so big announcements. Hera joins Gamer Legion. So yeah, Hera leaves Aftermath after a few years of playing with this team, joins Gamer Legion. Reception, I guess, is like a bit mixed on that move. They have made a podcast to talk about it. Hera has made a few videos to talk about it. Essentially, the gist of things is that Gamer Legion is more like a content creator organization.
For sure.
So Viper, Taro, Out are all full-time players and streamers. Nobody else in AM is really into that content creation. So like Heart and MBL, and I think Nikov as well, are streaming regularly. But Hera was the only one that was like a really full-time content creator. So yeah, big opportunity for Hera to join Gamer Legion. He accepts, and now he's part of the team. Now the question is like, how will that affect the competitive scene? Uh, Obviously, Gamer Legion is like the number one rival of AM in terms of like team game tournaments that are clan based. The last two would be probably
Boa?
the choreographers 2v2, where Gamer Legion won against Aftermath in the final, and then there was also Delicious World Cup, where also Gamer Legion won against Aftermath, I think, in the final. And also like 1v1 events, how is that gonna affect the preparation of Hera if he now starts practicing with Taro and Viper and Doubt? So like lots of caveats for both. Hera has defended himself by saying that him living Aftermath doesn't change much about the team. And in 1v1, everyone cannot practice together, or like they have different practice partners that are irrespective of the teams. It seems that Hera has switched from training mostly with Leary to training with like Yo, ACCM, and like other guys as well. So
I think with Heart, he
not sure how
practices,
this is gonna shape up.
yeah, quite a bit.
Part a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the most interesting
Obviously,
point, sorry, is the team game point.
go ahead.
Because you just,
Yeah.
it's cartographers in Delicious World Cup. I mean, technically both A tier, even though they might have felt like more. But the last major clan tournament was Boa, which we had, of course, the Aftermath and GL final. And
Won by Aftermath.
yeah, and like what Nelly said on the town center was he thinks Hera is going to strengthen GL a lot, and then Aftermath will get a lot weaker. And I think to me, that's a fair assessment. But Hera he thinks not so much. He feels like the Heart, and it might just be what he's saying. I mean, what he says on camera might not be what he really believes, you know what I mean? But, like, of course he's going to pick up his ex-teammate and say that Hart is going to, like, slot in and do the same job that he does, and it's not that complicated. Because, you know, he wants him to be full of confidence, you know what I mean? Like, that is what a good friend or teammate would do. But I don't think there's any getting away from it. Team game tournaments maybe is going to have a bit of a knock-on effect there, and maybe
so like I think it's like there you could look at it both ways. You could the pessimistic way to look at it is like, okay, Viper, Taro, and Hera are arguably the top 3 1v1 players in the world right now. And they're all in the same team. So what happens if you put like the best 3 players? Obviously they're gonna dominate everything. Then you can also look at things differently. Say, okay, like what is gonna be Hera's chemistry with Viper Tattooed out in a tournament? How are they gonna rotate If it's 3-3, if it's 4v4, it looks like Gamer Legion is gonna be unbeatable for sure. But then like other teams are still pretty good and have always been good despite not having the same depth of like 1v1 players. I'm thinking about Suomi, I'm thinking about White Wolf Palace, so like the Finnish and Chinese teams respectively, who have had like maybe like one star player, Vilese on Suomi, Yo on WWP. But despite that, like their number two is like much lower rated and they still perform at a very high level.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
I think
Go ahead, Pena.
to talk about the theme game stuff. Of the like big things that we know that's gonna happen, we probably expect Rage Forest, and it's in that sense maybe it doesn't change much for team games because any GL player plays in that, it's very unlikely that they will be like on the same team. But I think this move is also gonna disincentivize
For sure.
tournament admins potentially to host clan-based team game events, or like organization where you can have GL just show up and dominate. I remember Mem said once or twice that he's not that necessary, or I'm a bit paraphrasing a bit, but like he's not that excited to host Battle of Africa 4 because it's dominated by GL and AM, and now with Hera leaving leaving AM for GL, I think that basically is gonna incentivize Mem more to continue with what has been working the last 2 years for him, which is King of the Desert and Warlords, which are both 1v1 tournaments, which is a bit sad. I've always enjoyed both the games.
Yeah,
I agree. It's a shame. It maybe feels like we're getting a bit more stable in terms of like what tournaments are happening every year, but yeah, I don't see people rushing to host clan-based team game tourneys. I'm afraid maybe 2v2 stuff could work, but anything beyond 2v2 is a big question mark. 3v3, 4v4. I mean, we have good teams and we have very good teams, but none of them is going to compare to GL, realistically.
You know, I'd love to see a show match. Give me a 4v4 show match. Hera playing for Gamer Legion, and maybe like a round robin show match with AM, White Wolf Palace, and I don't know, either Suomi or maybe something
Insanity?
like yeah, like a mix of My Insanity and the Brazilian guys, Dogao and Miguel.
Yeah, like old Heresy.
Yeah.
It's not a bad
like,
bad idea.
Miguel, Dogao, Sito, and Anotov.
I can't believe we've not mentioned the Amigos, man.
Oh yeah, or them, yeah, because they're getting really good as well. So I think there's potential there, and I'd like to see this kind of games happen. I'd love to hear Hera on voice chat without trying to coordinate on their side. Or I guess maybe it could be like, if it's a 4v4, is Hera gonna play with Viper while Doubt and Tato play on the other side? Who's gonna be flank? Is Hera gonna be pocket? Is Viper gonna be pocket? You know, there's like, I want to see this team play, and I'd like to see how they do against the other teams. Is this gonna be a wash? Or the other teams? Is Lix gonna dominate Hera in a team game? You know,
again,
lots of interesting things. And yeah,
honestly,
okay.
Honestly, it's a really good idea. We just need to find someone who's gonna fund it.
Yeah,
like, as like a pop-up event
someone
for like
with lots of money.
Yeah, well, how much was the Chinese one that went on before Nations Cup final? Was that two? Was it like $2,000 or something? It wasn't like a small amount of money, but it was like, it wasn't huge either. I'm trying to remember. Maybe like something like that.
I can't remember.
Because that was around, like that was right. Like it'd be a really good like test. And like you wouldn't have to like do a big massive tournament. You can kind of work out if it's going to be if it's going to be legit or not, if it is something you can be involved. And it would answer a lot of questions honestly, without having to put 30k into a prize pool and making it super serious. You know, just have something. As a little test event, and you know, every kind of like major sporting event has test events to kind of see which works, test a course or whatnot, and it's essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
Anything else on Hera joining GL? I feel like what's been said at this point is kind of been said. Not just from us, but overall the community. And I think Tarz, you kind of summed it up very well. It's been mixed, but you know, I don't like. There's doubts there, but I don't think it'll end up affecting too much, especially in the 1v1 scene, which was being realistic. That is what most of the scene is these days, and it's all surrounding 1v1.
Yeah, and like also like I guess the last thing to mention is Hera has hinted as being very motivated by the content creation collaboration aspect of that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he and the other GL guys come up with as part of the move to GL.
GL does AoE ASMR.
Well,
Feet, Hera, Viper, and Doubt.
Doubt.
God.
Yeah, I'll hear it if it's Doubt.
On Forest, nothing.
I'll kind of leave you to that one. All right.
All right. Moving on.
Okay, moving on. So we got the meetup that went on in Berlin. I can share some photos and what went on. So I was actually part of the kind of organising team behind closed doors in this one. We had the meetup was going to be organised by the Hand, who's been involved in the previous ones for NECs, but kind of had some sickness. So I think he's on the mend now and doing all right. But essentially, that kind of job got put off to a group of individuals. Simon San was leading it, and then a few more of us volunteered to get that together, which was in a hotel the players were staying, which was not too far away from the Gamer Legion house. It was the biggest event the hotel's ever put on. So it was in like a conference room essentially, and I think the biggest it'd done before was like 150 to 200. The event was 450. So this was huge. This was a lot bigger than anything they've ever done before. And it was honestly, it was fantastic. I loved going to NEC 4. You know, meeting people, that's one of the best bits. You can watch Age, you can chat a bit. But the whole being there is just really nice to talk to in person instead of like being on a Discord call. And it's just totally different having that kind of like face-to-face interaction. Like last year when I went to NEC 4, I was only for the weekend. And I was like, I want to go for a lot longer this time, so I ended up staying for the week. Because then you can meet up. Well, I think there was like 5 of us that went for the week, so we ended up like staying in most nights, just drinking beer, playing some games, and watching like NEC for the first few nights, and then like sightseeing during the day. It was perfect, you know.
Yeah.
And then the weekend
came.
It's
always a good time.
Yeah, and then the weekend came, and I think I had to leave like for a few hours at one point to go home and nap because I was just like, I think it was like Saturday. I was like, man, I am running on fumes at this point. But I had like a 5-year-old Uber to get back. Slept for 2 hours, then came back. But it was worth it. It was such a good week. We had some funny interactions. Met Margugu at Kamigawa's pizza place on the Friday. Margugu just saunters up to me and goes, "Oh, my favorite admin." Shakes my hand.
That's awesome.
And it was funny, you know, like we ended up chatting for a good amount that night. And I mean, like being from like an admin perspective into player, when you have that kind of online relationship, is very different to what you would get like in a real life, because basically the online bit, you get all of the worst parts of like someone, but then in person you obviously don't get that, and that works both ways from like me to player and then like a player to me, or like it's from an admin view. It's like it's can be very awkward at times in terms of what's going on.
Yeah, it's like, especially as an admin and player, you have this like power dynamic, and often like strained relationship, because you will have conflicts, and obviously you look at things a certain way, and they look at things a different way, and sometimes it can clash. Then and then in this context, you're just like two fans of the game. You're not really in the admin or player relationship. You're just there
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
enjoy, have a good time, and it's like completely different.
So we got some good banter, shared some drinks. It was all good. I
That
think
sounds good.
we ended up in the shisha bar together, but I left about 2:30. I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna go back to the hotel or back to the Airbnb. Even though I did that, we ended up staying up to like 5:30 or something, just chatting away, which was kind of just silly. So we still ended up staying up super late. Uh, but I think they ended up. I think they. I was with Except as one of the mods in Dave's channel. They stayed to about 3. They went outside and they met. Then Dave and Dash just turned up and they went to some. They went to this really shitty American bar in the middle of Berlin. And I think they barely even got in. But this, I don't know why there's just like this American bar in the middle of Berlin. It was just dreadful, apparently. But they stayed there until like 7. And I'm like, my God, staying out to that time and having to come home and then cast the next day is crazy.
I
And
would not be able to do that.
no, and like to me that was the most impressive part of like people like the casting, when you know like how like they're actually staying out at night. Because there's only so many times you get to do this, so you might as well make the most of it. You don't get to meet up with people all the time, so staying out
Mm.
super late is, and just soaking it up is one of the things they do. I think Nelly, Viper, and everyone stayed. And on the Sunday night, I think they were in the hotel lobby till like 7 a.m. or something as well. Something silly like that. People were like leaving in the morning from the hotel, and they were still there, just sitting, having a grand old time. Can't blame them.
You're not helping with my jealousy. Not been able to attend one of these yet. One day.
One day should organize the South Africa viewing party for Hidden Cup.
Oi oi oi.
I leave that to the people who are more open to doing that. And the thing is that like the core people who would do that is in a different city, and then I like have to take a 2-hour flight back like each way, which is just it's a bit expensive
Hmm.
to just go
Flights.
travel down for that.
Flights for me were £50 return, and I was like, when I saw that, I was like, I'm just gonna book it and then I'll mark everything else out.
Yeah.
I'm in a luxury in Europe right now, so it's nice having cheap flights. It's very nice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other moments that were quite funny. I mean, meeting Mem was quite funny. We chatted for a little bit, and then I think a couple of days after it was all done, he was streaming. He was like, I didn't want to. Obviously, you can imagine his like accent is Spanglish. I'll not imitate him, but he was like, I didn't want to say in person, but you talk too fast for me. And I was like, that's a bit rich coming from a Spanish guy. Like, honestly. And the funny thing is, I kind of slowed down in person, but there was these couple other Scottish people that were there, and they were way faster than me. And there was this other American dude who tweeted me a couple of days later, and it was like, my God, those other two guys, I had no idea what they were saying. But that's because they've probably never been in like an international audience like that, and they probably don't realize it's so difficult to understand. Damn Scots. Mem's super nice.
Yeah.
Everyone was just super nice. It was great. You had Viper there on a Saturday night, just lost 5-0. You stayed there forever, signing stuff in the background. Jordan had the biggest line on a Saturday night as well. just
smile of his.
honestly, it was huge, and it didn't go down for so long. And Mel, a couple of other us, were just sitting around Dave, just getting a chat, and Jordan's up there. Honestly, it went on forever, and the same thing for Viper on the right hand side. Man, it was insane. I couldn't believe it, but it was mostly a German audience, so it makes sense. A lot of people were there to see Jordan, wanted to see him. The only complaint for me would be some people would take like 10 minutes, and by this point I wasn't really. Right, like it wasn't our job to like tell people to move on or that, but like my God, have a bit of common sense. Big massive line, and some people are wanting to talk for 10 minutes. My goodness.
Yeah.
But I think for the kind of like last minute aspect of it all, it was really good. I think we pulled it off. And I think there's a couple more meetups going to be happening for Hidden Cup, one in the US and then one in the UK. I think once you get the bug of being to like one, you kind of want to go back for more.
Sure.
It's a nice experience being able to like watch.
Such a good time.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to do it like
meet
in
the
person.
People, put a face on a username. Sometimes like on a voice as well if you have been in voice chat. But it just like the fact that you've met the people online. I think it takes a lot of the awkwardness of the first encounter off. Like it's really easy to talk to someone in real life if you have talked to them online before, and then it's just always a good time. I've been to a few, and it had always been great.
Yeah, like I would say honestly, people that I know through the Discord, the GV one, I would classify them as like proper friends now after like meeting like multiple times, which is quite nice, that I can just go on at nighttime and play games with someone I can actually call like a friend, it's nice.
Yeah, I've been to the wedding of someone I've met on the game and in a few meetups as well. So
I've heard that so many times from people. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, and it's like like you make those friendships, and then I think it goes beyond the game at some point. Yeah.
It's nice. It's very heartwarming.
Yeah.
It's very, very heartwarming. After a week I was done, though, I was very content to leave. I was quite happy to leave. Because I was like, that's a week. That's been a great week. But I'm looking forward to going home and sleeping in my own bed.
Yeah.
And then in the airport on the way back, we did see, I met a couple of the other clowns from Austria, Ovaline and his brother. And we seen Leary come in, and he was looking super confused. Like looking around in the airport. I'm like, I don't know if he's like rough or what's going on. That's what we say hungover in Scotland. But I was told later on in the day by the Austrians that when they were boarding, they noticed that Leary was at the wrong gate. He had no idea that boarding was going on for the flight to Vienna, and they went over.
Damn.
And they went over to tell him, it's like, we're actually boarding right now. And he's like, oh, I had no idea. He went on to board. It's like, without them, he might have missed his flight back home.
Oh.
Wow.
Thank God they were there, and thank God we noticed them. That's all I can say.
Yep.
Alright, that's enough from NEC. Let's move on to the first kind of like few sub-stories that we have. And I guess since the time we did the last one, we had the Icon DLC come out. We had some interesting takes on what the DLC would be. And I was just literally, I don't want to say literally, because literally is always a word. Literally is literally a word that's always used in the wrong context, or nearly always used in the wrong context. But essentially we had some like animated icons and whatnot. I think that maybe was a slight disappointment to some people, but maybe you can expand on that a little bit for us, Panda.
It was it's a bit of a bummer, I guess, for some people. I think when the DLCs got I can't remember if they added them like beforehand. To like on Steam DB where everyone's like stalking the game. It's like, oh, are we gonna get new servers or new campaigns? That question always comes up. What are we getting? Finally, unitary skins or something. And it ended up being just profile icons, which are for the higher level users, according to Mr. Yo. There was a funny interaction between him and Hera on the ladder when I think Yo had the one. I also like it actually, the one where the siege onager shoots the archers. I find it very amusing myself. Some people did not like it. You can go look at there's a couple of posts against it. I can see some of his points on it. I don't necessarily agree.
Sorry, Panda. That was T West. You said, right? You just dropped for 1 second.
T West.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, T West. He calls them a bit predatory, which I can see. But if they're available for everyone, why not have it? It's up to people to decide if they want to buy it. Maybe having it as a DLC to buy is a bit weird. Because it kind of clutters the store page. Like, let's say they add 10 more of these in the coming year.
Yeah.
Might be a bit awkward. I personally think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Or there's a potential opportunity for it, where they could say $1 of every DLC purchase is going to the yearly tournament prize pool, and I think that would then people could feel like they can contribute to events.
Yeah.
And you could maybe have one or a couple of them being aligned with a tournament. Like, let's say hypothetically, Hidden Cup is coming up now, right? And one of these mysterious DLCs got added to the game over the weekend or just before the weekend, and everyone's like, oh, what could it be? And it's the same things over and over again. But let's say hypothetically it's another Icon DLC, and it's World's Edge working with T90 to kind of bring Hidden Cup related emotes, and part of that price that you are paying for this DLC gets added to the main event prize pool. I think that would be really, really interesting way for the tournaments. I think Dota does something like this with their in-game skins and purchases. It always gets added to the big main event. So I think that could be...
So I want to get back on what you said there, because I think there's two different things. You were talking about having like a $1, for example, on the price of a DLC going to prize pools and everything. And I think there might be like a slight disconnect there, because a big part of the player base of Age of Empires is still only playing single player. So like a lot of people play the game. They have the nostalgia of having played it as kids, and they play the game. They boot up single player against the AI, or they're playing campaigns and everything. And those are still the biggest part of the player base. The player base that actually plays competitive online is, I don't know, like 20% of the player base, maybe even less. And that is the player base that is also likely to watch tournaments and everything. So like, how would you justify the extra dollar in the price of the DLC for players who maybe are not interested at all in funding the competitive scene and everything like that? That's like a real question. Like, I think that these people keep the game alive because they buy DLCs and play the game and keep having like keep contributing to the strong player count that we see on Steam and everything. But they might not be the target audience for prize tournament fundings and everything. That being said, I fully agree with what you said on like World's Edge partnering with T90, for example. Have like a set of icons that maybe go to funding Hidden Cup, and I think there would be a lot of people who would buy those, because it's something that's like kind of like a Twitch sub, right? You help something that you care about. So for example, let's say it's a $5 DLC. with hidden cup related icons that you can see in game. You give money that goes towards something you want to support. In this case, the tournament, and you also get something in return. So that's also like slightly better for you than just straight up giving to the prize pool. So I think there's like definitely an opportunity there.
I think just to play devil's advocate in that one as well. I think the Icon DLC is mostly marketed towards the multiplayer players because they're going to be the ones to show it off as well, right? Like when they queue up in their party or when they're in the end screen with the 7 other players or however many it is. I think so even the target market was probably still pretty small for something like this.
Potentially.
I'd love to know how many single player only players can have bought that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Those are numbers.
In that case, I agree. I thought Panda was talking about every DLC, not only the icons. If it's the icons, I agree.
Yeah, no, I meant just specific like these icons, or maybe you do unit skins, right? Something specific to like, let's say for NAC there was one where certain units are like turned into hippo related stuff, right? And then it would go to NAC. But there should obviously like be a disclaimer at the start, like part of the price you pay for this is going to XYZ in this specific case, right? Where you say like it is going to tournament funding, so that people know, okay, this is what I'm paying. I'm paying for the skins, but I'm also supporting the competitors too. And it could potentially, especially those like single player only people, bring them into the
provides a bridge there for them to get in.
Yeah. At least I think that's something we could potentially look into the future. There was one added, like I said, last weekend, and we shall see what this is. I saw an interesting one. Maybe it's AoE2 going the free-to-play route like AoE3 did sometime like during last year, but I think we're not there yet. Well, maybe we are. We shall see. There's many ways, but I'm leaning it's probably another. I
think that makes the most sense.
Icon related, yeah, it's a bit too fast on when did we have the last DLC was in October, so it's a bit too fast on that. Even if you were thinking a campaign only DLC, is still a bit too fast on that because I know it. Well, I've heard it takes a lot of time to create those. So. And I'm fine with that, and though I do get people's points about not liking it, but if somebody wants to buy those, then they should be free to do.
It's their money, man. I think there is interesting arguments over like the whole monetization thing, but the game is gonna have to get monetized to a certain degree to make sure it still exists, and that might seem like dramatic or. That is the actual word that needs to be used there, like for it to exist. Because without bringing in money, there's not like the same thing will happen. What happened before? And back to Vibly, guys. Sorry.
Oh no.
No. And we don't want that, do we?
To be fair, Vibly is how I met us, so. But. Yeah, that was days in the past. We need to keep on moving forward, and hopefully this is the way.
Yeah, and we have to
continue with that.
They have to find ways to keep making money, and I think diversifying.
Add new servs, right?
Yeah, and they can't just always add new servs. Like it's good to diversify the DLC. I think the one thing I want to say about the icons, this should have been something that has an in-game store. This would be typically you see in another, like any other game, that have an in-game store, and you'd be able to just buy it there. It shouldn't be a DLC in Steam. Like it's just too much clutter. Add all DLC as well. You're gonna get more money out of people. Kind of like a bit sneaky in that one. Yeah, I mean the amount of stuff that needs to get added in game. We're talking about single player players having like some sort of bridge towards multiplayer or tournament scene, and there's there's always very little of that. So not a lot has changed in the UI in game apart from like the map voting. That's like the main thing I can think of note. And that took a lot of feedback and communication to devs to make sure that one kind of changed, which is now not working very good. So even if something does get changed, I don't really have a lot of faith that it's going to be implemented too well, unfortunately. But
They finally fixed that last one. It took a while.
it took a few times, yeah. So essentially, what happened is the votes were going in, and the votes just didn't matter because they somehow screwed up the voting system. It was not ideal. But if they had the extra money, maybe they could have a better UI. Maybe they could develop it more. So it's this kind of like catch-22 situation. I'd rather have a better UI and a better game. So
Yeah.
New and improved pathing.
maybe we need
Take two.
more DLC to buy. Maybe. Anything else on the DLC? I don't think we're going to see it. I don't think we're going to see it free to play anytime soon, but that would be interesting.
Also, how do they approach that? Because a lot of the Sims are already like you get that with base DE already, which is almost like 30 Sims, if not more. So, how do they work with that? But maybe it's like a demo version.
Yeah, like who knows? Who knows? Like, it's certainly something to be explored there. Maybe like a demo version would be a good idea, like a trial, free to play, and then you have to upgrade and pay. Not sure, but I'm sure the towers at Microsoft are working furiously round the clock to making sure that Age of Empires 2 will stay afloat. Okay, let's move on to our next part of the show then. It's going to be our tournament shout-outs before we get into our final few topics, the community awards, heading cup qualifiers, and kind of a look ahead for the rest of the year. So just a few things to cover. Tournament shout-outs just be one from each of us. And I'll start us off. We had King of the Hippo, which has been a kind of regular event from Nelly in the last number of years. This was King of the Hippo 10. Essentially, it's a King of the Hill tournament. And it's a free-for-all, so 8 players. We probably don't have enough free-for-all tournaments that are kind of like in the competitive scene, largely because they can get a bit campy and last a very long time. And also, a lot of people don't have PCs that can manage them, as Nelly found out again for the second year in a row. The playback speed was going very, very slow. Capture rate, which is very, very intensive on your PC. So once you have like 600-700 units firing animations and whatnot, your PC can start to lag very, very quickly because Capture Age is an external app on top of the game, so there's a lot of CPU that's getting used there. It's not the easiest thing for your computer to handle. But anyway, the tournament was fantastic. I did play. I ended up in Viper's game. I think we played Elephants only. The Otter, who is the Otter one. Otter is like a 1500 like DM free-for-all kind of guy, but he plays free-for-alls every week on his channel on like Tuesdays. He won ours. He got through to the final, but the final was won by Leone, and Leone was part of the organising team for the meetup as well. Leo Grampy, I think, is her Twitch. And yeah, our first female winner of King of the Hippo, which happened to be a queen. And Leone's like 1,300, 1,400 player. And took home, I think it was like, let me quickly just check.
$562.
$562. Would you look at that? And I think she got a lot more notability points for Wikipedia as well. I think she's like up to like 700 or something now, which is actually kind of impressive.
Pretty good as well. Like looking at the lineup, winning is a 1,300 in a game where there's Taro and freaking Andy. So 2 top 8 finishers of NAC 5.
I
It's
think
a pretty good performance.
I think Nilly was going on stream during the tournament. He was going trying to look at the previous winners, and they all also came out of a higher level qualifier
Yeah.
to sign up.
Generally,
really?
that's what happens. I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I think Teutonic Tanks has won a couple, Tato has won a couple, and it's
Yeah.
always been
Yeah.
like someone coming from a high qualifier as listed by the signups. It's won it, and this was I think
There's a
somebody
lot.
can comments can correct me here, but we had our first low level sign up winner as well, which is nice to see
Yeah.
for how do you call it, like the small guys out there, right?
The underdogs.
For sure. 'Cause
Yeah,
yeah, I'm looking at the previous ones, and I think it's always been like Taro, Tanks, Klapskis, a few other guys, but yeah, always high level, high participant. Panda made a final, and I made another as well. Looks like King of the Hippo 6, Panda was in the final, Tanks won that one,
that was a great game.
and I won in this final of 7, and Tanks won that one as well.
Oh bloody hell!
Yeah.
It was elephants only in my game for this one, and I think five of us ended up picking Dravidians because Viper in the lobby confirmed that if you won, like, the thing with Viper's channel right now is if you beat me with Dravidians, I'll VIP you. So 5 of us ended up, including Viper. Actually, it's only 4. I think did CS? No, I'm actually looking at the. I'm looking at the Wikipedia. I don't know if CS has got the right civ. I need to check that. But there was a few of us that ended up
Okay,
picking
so
Dravidians.
he's listed as Dravidians, but since the winner was Khmer, he doesn't need to VIP anyone.
Exactly. That was a rough thing. Otter was Khmer and ended up going for ballistas, and Viper ended up. We're trying to like go for mid, and Viper's like siege honors and my siege honors, and I'm like, do you know what? Just do it yourself, and we ended up losing. But my whole plan before the game was I didn't want Sarakuma or Viper to win. I want one of the lower rated players to win, and mission accomplished in that one. So no hard feelings. Panda, you want to do your tournament shout out?
Yeah. So it's not necessarily a tournament, but this is kind of like 2-weekly. I don't know what's the correct word. It's bi-weekly, right? Event that happens in the South African community where with every map rotation they get like this pool of random civs. Then there is the goal for players, the one to enter. They have to try and get a win with all the civs in this like pool, and then try and also get a win on every single map in the map rotation. And then basically for every win you get that matches the criteria. So like let's say Goths is in the pool, you don't get an entry for every Goths win you get, but like you won with Goths, that counts as one ticket. And then at the end of the 2-week period, you the host of the event, Igor Beaver, he gives a Steam gift card to a randomly selected winner, and it's a nice way of getting people to play the game and expand outside of what their comfort zone is.
Mm-hmm.
Especially most people who are playing that are on the more lower rated side. So it's nice, and you kind of grow as a player in that sense, and it's also challenging your buddies. And sometimes there's a civ that's not necessarily that's a bit like Chinese, and then there is this discussions like how should we play Chinese because it's a harder start, and that's I think it's a good way to grow a small community in our sense.
It's probably one of my favorite parts of like age tournaments, or these kind of like smaller side like that are more focused on engaging people, and it always works really well. I think it's great. Opens up a lot of discussion, breaks down a little bit more of barriers of whatnot. People get to know each other a bit better. It takes an effort to actually engage people. You just can't expect things to happen. You have to make it happen. And that's one of the things that can do it.
Yeah, the guy who runs the event, he even created a website. You just upload a recorded game, and it will like extract everything for you, which is nice. So it's not even a lot of admin work to it.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
that's like more advanced than most tournaments.
That's
pro level tournaments.
No, that is more advanced than just about every tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's the random thingy at the end.
I think it's a good way to foster like the growth of the community and also like easing people into playing more on like competitive settings. I think it's always like you have the incentive with that the Steam code, and yeah, it's good fun.
Yeah, and especially like in our case, like we have those like of the people who usually participate in tournaments. There's Lozard, it's me, and then there's Lozard's brother. We're kind of like very far ahead of everyone else. So when the big, like if there's ever a big tournament, it's like, oh, we know who's the top three, and so this is more like anyone can win it in the end. So it's also a nice way to get people to be a bit more competitive as well, when you know like everyone has an equal chance basically in the end, and it's not just I'm gonna get stomped say in round one, which it's not fun. I think we've all played in like in those tourneys at some point where you just like you sign up to play your best of one, hopefully against Doubt or Viper, and then you had your fame, but it's also not necessarily fun, right? If you want to improve as a player. Yeah. Over to Tarsus for his 20.
Yeah, so like the one I want to shout out is the Gamescom LAN. So I think it's gonna be in March. There will be an open LAN at the German Gamescom. So I think this always happened in Cologne. So there will be like an Age of Empires tournament. It's I think organized by My Insanity and Bulletchen, and also Take TV. I think with this the organization where Mapu, the observer for the Red Bull tournament, is part of, if I'm not mistaken. Someone can correct me in the comments. And yeah, so it's gonna be like $1,000 prize pool tournament. Played LAN at Gamescom. Bring your own computer. I think details are still to be announced, but that sounds like good fun. That reminds me a little bit of I think it was the DreamHack Bring Your Own Computer LAN that was won by freaking Andy against Al Matador. Yeah, if I'm not, or maybe against Kongen. Yeah, one of them.
Kongen. It was Kongen.
Yeah. So yeah, good opportunity. All local players. I assume the level will be pretty good. I think so, like probably like locals to Germany, France, Austria, who can go there pretty easily. Or Denmark as well. But yeah, sounds like a fun tournament. So keep your eyes open for that. So that will be mid-March, so March 15th to the 17th.
Yeah.
In Cologne, Germany.
So like 2 weeks after Hidden Cup.
Yeah, quick turnaround as it always is, but actually 2 weeks is a very long time in terms of AoE because we're used to things starting the next day. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
Bullet Chen did say they're in talks with Microsoft, so currently 1K. Let's see if it does get bigger. I'd be very interested to see if it gets bigger and how that could affect the players that end up participating in it. I think that's certainly one to keep an eye out of. Cool. So moving on to our next topic, we'll get on to the Community Awards, which I ended up doing just before the end of the year. Not had a real chance to reflect on it, so we can do so now. And we had quite a few, I was going to say major awards there, but they definitely weren't major. But we had quite a lot of responses in this one, which was really nice. Way more than I expected. I've got the Google form up on my screen at the moment, which people will be able to see. 844 responses. Not everyone responded to every question, though, so there's different kind of amounts answered for each one. The first kind of major one I do want to touch on was the best S tier tournament. The only thing that was kind of revealed was NAC was number one, ended up getting 36.4% of the overall vote, which is a real lion's share. Second place was Warlords, which was 20.2, and then Nations Cup and third at 19.4. So Nations Cup and Warlords 2, very, very similar numbers. Then a bit of a drop off to King of the Desert, which was just under 14%. And then both the TTLs down at the bottom. Season 3 was 7.6, and then Season 2 only got 2.9% of the vote. But I think one of the biggest reasons for TTL being lower towards the bottom is purely down to the format and maybe viewers getting a little bit burnt out of it, especially when you have silver if you have gold also running consecutively and not at the same time. What do you think,
It was
gents?
also a long time ago, right?
But yeah, which doesn't help. There's always going to be a recency bias with these kind of things as well. But NEC 4 was in March of that year.
Yeah.
I think it just speaks to the quality of the event and that it really really stuck with people. Like they remembered NAC even though like in I think in those kind of like votes you tend to have like a lot of, like you said, a lot of recency bias. So like the fact that NAC still won the vote, I think speaks a lot of like the quality of the event.
And I'm going to say the same thing for Nations Cup, man. Nearly a fifth of the vote, and it was months ago, and I think a lot of people weren't happy with how long it went on, even though we had literally no choice but to do that. So I was happy with how much of the vote we got in that one. I'm pretty pleased.
I personally voted for Nations Cup. I think it was to me it was the standout of the year, because like NEC we've had a couple of the Nations Cup was something we wanted since I think the last one we had was 2017. So it was a 6 years in the making. Obviously, it's gonna be like a huge undertaking, huge tournament. So it takes a long time, but I think it ran really well, really smoothly for how big it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
It was big, really big. And how many divisions did it end up having? 7 or 8?
We had
7 or 8, yeah, that was one thinking as well.
We had gold, silver, bronze, wood, and then wood, then
Ash and roots.
and ash and roots. Yeah, so that man, I was so happy with those names. So ash and roots both came from the wood league, like the wood. Essentially, it's a joke at the wooden spoon, and the ashes, of course, from the burnt up teams from wood. And then I think Roots was the one. Roots the one below? I can't actually remember.
Yeah, Roots was the lowest. I'm a Roots League player, guys.
Yeah, so obviously at the very bottom of the tree, you know. So I was
the most important one.
Trying to make some jokes.
I'm glad we got the opportunity. We ended up playing a lot of games, and it's nice also. Because at least in the South African community, most of us haven't like played together in a tournament before, so it was a nice experience. And they are asking, when is the Nations Cup, the next one already?
Oh boy.
Yeah, they like our players definitely had fun in it, and I think a lot of people did.
Yeah. It was a big commitment. I'd be interested to see what happens if Microsoft were to get involved in terms of sponsorship and how that would change the whole kind of timeline and things. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Imagine a LAN final for Nations Cup. That would be insane. Okay, the next big... We were just talking about recency bias. The next kind of major category we had was the best non-S tier. And I think Tarza should probably had something to say about this one. But cartographers... absolutely ran away with it. So we had cartographers 26.4%, Rage Forest 4, which I believe was second, 10.5, Masters Arena 10.2, WDC 8.7, which I think was a really nice one. And then we have a lot of other kind of like smaller tournaments and around. You wait till you see the pie chart on this one, and around like 5%, 0% to 1%. But essentially, cartographers did run away with it.
Yeah, so for this one, I would say it's like this definitely recency bias. Like I think for S tier, I'd say like S tier tournaments are probably the ones that people will follow around the whole year. So you can probably remember the tournaments easily, saying, okay, like what was this tournament? Yeah, I remember watching NAC 4. I remember watching Warlords. I remember watching Nations Cup. I think for A tier, maybe you don't follow them as closely, so you remember some games, or like maybe for like more casual viewers that don't necessarily watch everything, like Panda. Uh, but like yeah, so like for me, I mean for me, DWC was my favorite A tier of the year, but I'm not surprised the choreographers won it because it was the last one of the year, November 20th to December 3rd. Well, it was not the very last one. I think technically AOE to Middle East was the last one of the year, but it was after the vote was done. One that I'm surprised didn't get that much mention was Clash of Empires, maybe
4.4,
which was kind of in this like weird realm where it's like in between A tier and S tier. I mean, like A tier prize pools were crazy last year. DWC was 23k, Cartographers was 15k, and Clash of Empires was 11k for a 1v1. Won by Leary against Doubt, and that was like I think a pretty good event. I think it had a big turn up of players. Hera played, Viper played, Yo played. Yeah. So like a lot of very strong players.
Played.
Yeah, most of the top 16 played.
There was maybe just a little bit of negative stuff in the background with the prize pool and whatnot, and the force and the ads and the
like
streamers, which I think maybe affected the overall perception. You know, like it was
that's true.
It was a bit of a weird one in that aspect.
And also maybe the fact that it was like a 1v1 event, and they had like the other 1v1 events that people would remember were the S tier, King of the Desert, Warlords, etc. So in comparison, maybe that one paled a little bit, and so a lot of people would like award the best A tier for a team game. But yeah, I think Cartographers was pretty great as well. So it's not like it's not undeserved either.
Yeah, like that was a nice tourney for sure.
I think at least for me, what took it away from cartographers was nobody was like dedicated casting stuff, so it was hard to follow everything.
Yeah,
and watch it at least. And I get why that's kind of comes with the territory of having a player hosting an event of that size.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that took a bit away from it for me at least. And that's why at least I would also like Tasa said, like DWC was really, really good. It had wild maps and actually had some wild results along the way as well. And at least so like those two for me at least were the best events, but I feel like DWC just edged a bit ahead, maybe because I felt like it was a bit hard to follow the cartographers, though both were really good tournaments, and hopefully we see more of them.
The funny thing is they have totally different approaches, but they suffered from the same problem of not having a dedicated caster. So DWC didn't have a major name next to it, whereas the cartographers had Viper, but not a huge like caster's going to cover all the games, and they both suffered from the same thing, a little bit tricky to follow, which is quite funny. So maybe like they just need to have at least one person that's going to be dedicated, and it'll cover nearly everything for just about any tournament. And Surely, like, they had T West and Ornley on admin duties for it, right? But I don't know if they did. Did they cast everything? I feel like they didn't.
They did cast almost
lot.
everything.
Okay.
At least, yeah, they casted a lot of things.
Like, why couldn't they just have said hosted by Viper, Ornley, and T West? What would have been the problem with that?
Nothing really. It's
not like they're not respected, well-known names in the community. Maybe they didn't want that, or maybe that was. It's just I'm just spitballing and wondering why not? To me, it seems odd.
because at least like
Maybe there were
stand
like
on. They had like a decent impact on the maps that got played, right?
Mhm.
For example, I think they voted in Eastern Coastline, and it had some really good games. And that's like also
Yeah.
one of old map that we lost so in ECL. So like it was not necessarily like explicitly stated like let's say like hosted vibe on T West, but like they all had a decent hand in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe they could have been a bit
More,
like advertising like that.
yeah, maybe a bit
In
more
a
explicit
sense.
about it all. I don't know. Like, I'm just kind of thinking why certain things are done one way and why they're not done the other way. That's kind of all. Then again, we could be.
Yeah.
I mean that happens all the time in the age space. I'm afraid. Next awards are two player awards, where both of them were absolute landslides. Player of the year was Hera, 67.6%,
Unsurprising.
unsurprisingly. Tato in 16%, and then Viper in 71. Yo, so 71 votes, 8.5, and then Yo on 3%. So massive landslide here. If I go further and further down, there's like some odd votes. Who's my favorite odd votes? Aladishek is in here. Someone voted for him. We have you Pudding's got a vote. Dave Hunn's got a vote.
That's
John,
probably Fengita.
yeah, John Slow's got a couple of votes. Lucky Rocks has one as well, and there's Ruben Stock. So not everyone was taking it completely serious. And then for most improved, another landslide, also very similar distribution on the vote. Freaking Andy, 65.8. And then in second place, but it was kind of a different improvement, which was Barrels at 10.7, and then Margugu and 7.2. So, like, the distinction here between Andy and Barrels, Andy's obviously went from, like, in the probably in the 25 to 30 category to now going to, like, top 10, whereas Barrels was kind of in, like, the 12 to 16, and now like really challenging for. I feel like that's 68 spot as well.
I think Barles benefited from recency bias when the vote happened because he had just come out of very strong performances in both TTL and Warlords, and since then he has kind of gotten back towards this. He's like top 16 level, but he had two very strong showing into S tier, which probably impacted the vote. So people would say, okay, Balls is one of the most improved player, and I think it was deserving. Like he was already very good, but kind of almost made it to like this like next level for a while. I don't think he has sustained that. So we'll see how he does in the Hidden Cup qualifiers. But I think he had two good performances in a row towards the end of the year. Didn't manage to qualify for NEC.
Like unfortunately,
but still,
and was very close to doing so, and had a bit of a tough route as well.
Yeah. So like 4-3 against Dado, heartbreaker because he had like kind of a sieve advantage. Well, most people would say he had a sieve advantage.
That was
in
fun
the final
in the
game.
Twitch chat.
Yeah. I mean, there was like funny tweets. Margugu tweeting Viper, quoting Viper. More Viper was saying it was unwinnable for Turks against Rogera, and that'll prove him wrong.
As he has.
But yeah, and then second qualifier, he lost against freaking Candy. Went on to qualify, so yeah. But yeah, like Bars has been very impressive in recent events. I think smashing Nikov, I think in Warlords, I think that was the performance I remember. Yeah, smashing Sito and then Warlords, and then eventually not making it by losing to Hera and Jordan.
Yeah, and mentioning Hera there, of course, the Player of the Year. We touched on them earlier, not huge surprises. We had another player award, actually, now I'm just remembering. We had the Comeback Player of the Year, which was won by Hart. And in an even bigger landslide, once you see the pie chart of this one, it looks like a Pac-Man because it's in yellow. It's 82.3%. And Mentalist getting 8.6, and then Tim on 4.8. Obviously, both of them coming from the Nations Cup performance. But
Nations
Hart,
Cup.
yeah, but Hart is, he has been relatively inactive for quite a long time, especially in terms of tournaments. And there was a whole Hart student drama and whatnot. I mean, you can't get seeded if you don't really play too many tourneys, but he's definitely back now. He is back.
Yes, and I was thinking when Hera joined Gamer Legion, with that, I was thinking Hart is now arguably the strongest player on Aftermath. Like he beat Leary in NAC 5, and he's probably the most active of them.
There's a take.
So like, Hart has gone from being by far the well, quote unquote worst, because they're all super good player on the roster, to potentially being the number one now with Hera leaving for Gamer Legion. So I think that speaks a lot about like how he has been willing to put in the hours, improve, and we've seen it in the results as well. So he made NAC 5 by qualifying, by beating Doubts and then Sito, beating Sito 4-3. And his previous set against Sito, he lost 3-0 in Warlords. So like that's even improvements in just like a couple months. So yeah,
Mhm.
Not
really
even
strong.
that's like a couple weeks.
True.
Yeah, just like a couple weeks.
Like a very quick turnaround from that.
Yeah.
Also, like he took 2 games of Viper at NAC. That shows his potential, right?
Like he was bomb, but he played like this. This is the interesting contrast for me for Leary and Hart. I feel like Hart still played well, but obviously Leary was a big disappointment. But they were both right at the bottom. Like I think if Leary played Viper, I don't know if we probably would have took 2 games off him. To be honest, maybe
Well,
being
Leary
unfair
played
there.
Viper and lost 3-0.
True. Yeah. Exactly.
Was I think that was the most disappointing set for me.
Yeah,
like the games
because it's
didn't
always
last
like a
very
classic,
long.
and it was over very fast.
Any more?
Yes, so
winners?
we had Best Series, which was another one, which would probably, if we were gonna redo it, it would have been overtaken by Hera and Tato, I think.
Probably, yeah.
But we did have Hera Tato from Warlords 2, which the final was also a very, very good series. So I ended up winning that with nearly 30%. The other options were NEC final, Lara versus Hiri, 3%. Nations Cup final, a little bit behind and just about 18%. Hera versus Freakin' Andy in 4th place. Doubt versus Taro and TTL there. I think if we were going to redo it, probably would have been Hera Tato from. Oh, in fact, that's in January. That's going to be this year's. Oh, this is going to. We'll see if that lasts the test of time, guys. If we redo it and Hera Tato is still series of the year, then we can talk about recency bias then.
Yeah, hopefully not. Hopefully we get many more great sets. But yeah, that's like a strong bar already set in January.
Yeah, for sure. What else did we have? We had Tournament Contributor of the Year, which was won by Mem. He had 29.5%. Obviously has a big admin team behind everything he does, but he's not just outside of his own events, he's casting a lot. He does crazy hours, so I think that's well deserved there. Nelly got 12.7. T90 was 8.3. And then in fourth place was Paradox 303, 5.1. Would you look at that? Up and coming streamer was won by Daniela. She ended up with 15%. Loads of names here, which just goes to show like how diverse and new people we have coming through all the time. And Juan Perotti was in second place. Creative Award was something very similar. We had so many people doing different things in AOE, and there's loads of people here that are like 1-2%. I think have done amazing things. But it was won by Mazmora, and it was a small percentage, of like 11%. So that just goes to show like how diverse like it was. I mean, there is like some pretty weird simping that goes on. Like Mem's got 2.3% for the creative award. I think they kind of missed the point. But there's like Ugly, which is T90.
Missing content creator.
Yeah, maybe. And there's always going to be some sort of like, you have to interpret the awards in different ways. But like Doc Maggie had 1%. Like he was the one that was doing the Alcatraz stuff. I thought that was like a good shout. Chopta Burger's been doing like all the merch like down at 1%. I mean, Graph is like 5%, but like honestly, Graph stream is probably one of like the most creative streams that are out there. Tiramis, I think if we were going to redo it, Tiramis would be at the top, especially it's now started releasing videos on YouTube that are fantastic.
Yeah.
That would be the one to watch for this year, I think, would be
I
Tiramis.
think we're gonna see a lot more of him. Brightbird announced yesterday that he's changing some things on his YouTube. Yeah. So I think we might see more edited content, which Tiramis will have a lot of input on, and so he here.
I agree.
I mean, it's already high, but like it's gonna really go even higher this coming year for him, and he does really good work.
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed those two videos. You can check out. I think is it just Tiramis or is it Tiramis Edits his YouTube? I think it's just Tiramis. Or what is it? Tiramis or Tiramis? How would you say it, Tarsus?
Oh, it's Tiramis.
Okay, you're French, so you should know, right?
Yeah.
I think that's how these things work.
I mean, like, is it like a French username or is it like an international username?
Good question. I need to ask him the next time I have a conversation with him. I have no idea when that will be. The Unsung Hero Award went to T West. He ended up getting 7.1%. So again, it just shows how many people are kind of worthy of this one. A lot of names with very small percentages. Crizini in there. And HK was one of my favorites. Happy Leaves, Capture Age. There's like way too many different people to really to point out here that do very amazing things for the community and are still doing so.
All good shouts, though.
Honestly. Yeah. I feel like Happy Leaves that does Spec Dashboard and NHK are like two of the proper like unsung heroes. They do like they have like
because like not many people know those names.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of like NHK is a mother from Hong Kong who makes those a lot of UI modes that people use. So she made the dog. She made like something with the fish borders. She made like lots of modes like that a lot of people end up using. And Happy Leaves is one of the. I think he's more like a coder, and he's maintains the AOE Rex and the AOE dashboard as well.
Yep. Very, very, very busy man. And then the last one we had was the biggest drama. Don't want to spend too much of that time in this one. It was just the Vietnam's Nations Cup scandal, which was 36%. And then there was a lot of different other ones that did get brought up. Death by Horse was my funny one from it did get brought up, which was from Warlords. Reddit stuff was also pretty spicy, only 1.2%. And then the Clown Legion demise, also kind of spicy, but only 0.3%. I mean, anything to do with Clown Legion is usually pretty good in terms of space.
Mhm.
Not gonna lie, guys. Most of it's contained inside John Slow's Discord, though. Thank God it is.
I just lurk there these days. But yeah, it can get it can get a bit interesting, I'd say.
Okay. Well, that'll do it on the community awards. We also had a little section on wild predictions, which we'll come back to when we start to think about 2024, just after we cover Hidden Cup, which will be Tarsus, I believe. Yeah, Tarsus will kick us
Yeah.
off and talk a little bit which qualifiers going on just now as we lead into the main event.
Yeah, so Hidden Cup 5 is coming up on the 25th of February. But the qualifiers, I think that the T90 are hosting are a bit different from usual qualifiers for events. So instead of having just like a weekend event for qualifiers, this one will drag on to February 11th. So I think around 3 weeks for the qualifiers, at the end of which 9 players will punch their ticket for Hidden Cup 5. The qualifiers also offer a prize pool of $10,000, which is, I think, the biggest prize pool ever for a qualifier. So everyone that is place 10 to 48, so 38 players, will earn some prize money. So that is everybody who wins at least one match in the qualifier will be entitled to getting $150 of prize money. So that's an effort of C90 to sustain the professional scene beyond just like the top 16 and everything. So the qualifiers are on the way. There's like 6 brackets at the end of which 6 players will qualify, and 6 other players, the runner-ups for each bracket, will face each other in like a second chance qualifier. We are currently in the round of 48, so that is the second round of the qualifiers. And already in the round of 96, we had a few not upsets, but probably like so it was like a best
Close
of
to
3
upsets.
format. Now yeah, we had a lot of like close sets, like sets that had no business being that close and that were close. So for example, we had Taro dropping a game to Turs. So Taro was seed 1, Turs is seed 96. So definitely like a surprise there. We had Margugu dropping cross. Margugu and Sito both dropping cross, I think. Yeah. I think that's especially surprising from Sito. I would say Sito is probably like top 10, top 8 maybe on cross. Definitely, I think his best map. Ahead even of Arabia. So like dropping that to Salted Pepper was a pretty big surprise. And we had also Miguel dropping Arabia against You Pudding. So another contender for Player of the Year according to the poll. But yeah, so like the round of 48 is underway. I think there might be like a couple already like today. I think there was an interesting match between Villese and Siskan. So Siskan might not be known to many listeners, but he's like an upcoming French player, probably 4th or 5th best French player at the moment. Winning again a game against Villese, so like a pretty good performance by him. We had Hope, Vietnamese player, taking a game from Barles, and Overtaken taking a game from Mihai. Although I would say Overtaken is probably closer in level to Mihai than Hope is to Bars or Siskan was to Villese.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say there's some interesting matchups still to get played for round of 48.
For sure.
It is,
Anything
but it is
comes
best
to
of
mind?
5. So I think
Yeah.
they're really. I mean, see if it's a best of 3. I could maybe see Lex maybe doing something against it though. If he plays the same he played against Salted Pepper, but I think winning a best of 5 against a higher seed is just going to be super, super difficult.
Yeah, I think like Sito and Morgugu were casting Siscan this morning, and they were talking about it, and they were like, oh, yeah, like if you lose a game in the best of 3, suddenly the final game is a lot sweatier.
Mm-hmm.
But like in the best of 5, you have a little bit more margin. So yeah, I do think that Lix is never an opponent that you're happy seeing in your bracket, because he's such a wild card. But I think Zito should be better prepared for that against Salted Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it looks like there's gonna be like a few potentially very interesting sets. Margoo was not feeling super confident against Husiel, so that could be an interesting one to watch for. Dark against Dragonstar. I think to me this is like anyone's game to take. It'd be like a 3-2 either way.
Or a 3-0 either way, depending on.
Or a 3-0 either way, yeah. BV against Kazva, also potentially a good one.
Yeah, and Vivi is in Tato's bracket, so going to be a tricky one there. Also Heart's in there, but Vivi and Heart on the bottom side. So essentially, whoever the most likely players to win out of Vivi Heart, if they get to that point, is then going to face Tato in that final spot.
Yeah.
That'll be a very interesting clash of styles between Heart and Vivi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still I'm just interested in seeing more of Heart style, because I feel like he's like a pretty good favorite to make the main event, and I don't know much about his playstyle. I know T90 always describes him as like very clean, but beyond that, I don't know a lot more. I think he's like probably gonna pick open maps and stuff like that, but I'm interested to seeing more of him ahead of Hidden Cup so that we can guess his playstyle in the tournament. I think he's one of the fastest players though, so
yeah, he's
APM wise, he should be pretty easy to pick up.
I'm gonna say I'd like to see Vivi because Vivi is super easy to spot.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Hart might be a little bit more, but a little more like Hart's probably someone you're waiting to cross off some names first and then slot in Hart. Whereas Vivi's one of the first names down.
Yeah, for sure. I think like it's like a bit like Barles in the last Hidden Cup. He's like a player who does a lot of things very well. Doesn't have any like glaring weakness, but also doesn't have like a very flashy style. While Vivi is definitely a player that he's gonna have first speak Spanish or stuff like that.
That'll be something. Yeah.
Poles,
Yeah, human Spanish, this kind of thing.
But you're actually wrong. The first name on your list is Dart 16 times, and then you start eliminating, adding other players. That's how you do Hidden Cup.
I think in that second bracket where Margu is, I think he's got a decent chance. But if he's not feeling too confident, and he could have lost in the first round, like quite. It was very shaky against NY4, this Brazilian player. He used to have a longer name, but he's in the same bracket as Venge, Dark, and Mihai. So
yeah,
honestly, that's anyone's game there, I think. And then you're still gonna have a second chance to get to the final.
Probably so. Like of all the qualifier brackets, I feel like this is gonna be the closest one. Because so Winchester is playing remotely. He's not he has his own his computer and everything, but he's traveling. So I think he's in Thailand at the moment after spending a few months in Bali and like a brief stint in Malaysia. But like how comfortable he's on his setup, and probably he's also enjoying life a lot. I don't know how prepared he's gonna be. So I know Mihai seems to be training like a lot. He always is sharing feedback on the maps on Hidden Cup 5 Discord. So I feel like Mihai is gonna be very well prepared. He would almost be my favorite in this bracket. But I think Margu matches pretty well against Mihai in general, so we'll see.
I think that's a really tricky one to predict. And then like bracket 3, I think Barles is the obvious choice. But then there's a question of like who's going to get the second chance. Maybe angling towards Logal. Not too sure. Bracket 4, you really touched on Vallessa, NBL, Capoch is in there too. I kind of feel like Capoch might sneak through. He has like a knack to doing this. Like he just like he sneaks through in certain times and like he's in the right bracket to do it.
Yeah, I think Villese has looked shaky
not great
today.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, and was also looking shaky during NAC 5 qualifiers. Lost to Mihai. So yeah, I think actually I'm looking at Genji as someone who can potentially already upset Villese, maybe.
Ooh, yeah.
Uh,
You might be onto something.
I'm not
there.
sure that
Yeah.
the map pool. Yeah, I'm not sure the map pool favors Genji. I feel like Genji on like because there's not so many close maps. If there were maybe a little like one or two more close maps, I would think he has like a good shot.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still like a dangerous player. Capoch, very strong. Capoch against MBL is like almost a classic at this point. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Always a wild.
MBL is my favorite
games.
to qualifier from this bracket, though.
Mm-hmm. I like he's certainly in the conversation. It's definitely a bracket that's got a few contenders. Throwing in Ganji as well is certainly something that needs to be considered. Bracket 5 is Sato's bracket. I think Sato looks pretty comfortable there. Should be. The question is who gets to the qualifying match, and it should be Valis. If it was going to be anybody else,
it should be Valis.
But
I think Valis has not looked very great recently, so I think Miguel actually has like a shot at beating Valis and making it to the qualifying set. We'll see.
I think there's even a likelihood that maybe Miguel doesn't even make it past Sobek.
I mean, it
could happen.
It's underway at the moment, but yeah,
it could happen. And then bracket 6.
And then final bracket.
God, this one's a tough one.
This one is a tough one. It's gonna be a heartbreaker. So like freaking Andy and Sebastian are gonna probably clash in the round of 24. So that means that one of them is only gonna get one chance, and they're both really good. I think Sebastian actually beat Andy in the first NAC 5 qualifier, and then lost against ACCM. And in the second one, they were on course to meet, but Sito beat Sebastian and then lost to Andy. So yeah, potentially a rematch. Super interesting. I would love to see Sebastian because he was so close on for an EC5. But Andy, great player. Yeah.
And also Nikov.
I think
Kingston
Nikov might be the favorite
on the bottom side as well. That's kind of crazy. Like Kingston seems to have like fallen back a little bit, but he's still a top player. I do think Nikov is the favorite of the bracket overall.
Yeah, I'm seeing semi-name against Kingston. I'm seeing semi-name go through and lose to Nikov.
My God, that would be a turn up for the books. But semi-name can do it. He's been around for a while, you know.
He's been around for a long time, and he's like a super dangerous player.
A long time.
And also, I feel like Kingston is more comfortable, maybe on like slightly closer maps, closed maps. I mean, so we'll see.
Is there any chance of is there any chance of an outside bet for any of these? I think it's hard, right?
Hard to say.
Maybe it's Ganji. We probably wouldn't have said that at the beginning, but the way things have turned out with how Valesa's playing.
Yeah. I don't think any upsets in the round of 48. But round of 24, I could see a few. I could see Daniel upset Barles. I think Daniel is like a very talented player. Seems to sometimes have trouble staying consistent, but I think on a good day he's
very dangerous.
Really be dangerous.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I could see running upset Dokao maybe. I could see Running be upset by Stark. Lots of things happening there. Genji Ozone is already an interesting one. Ozone could beat Genji. Genji could beat Velasquez. Hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. And of course, there's only spots for 9. Yeah, 9 players because we had 8 invites. Back-T didn't accept his. I think they reached out quite a few times to try and get him. So ACCM, Doubt, Hera, Jordan, Leary, Yo, and the Viper all automatically invited. Yeah, it's Hidden Cup 4 was quite a number of years ago, and it's obviously what T90 said at the time in terms of like this is how Hidden Cups always do. If you make top 8, you're going to get an invite to the next one, but I think
it's
you probably need to move away from top. Like you're only 1 in 1 best of 5, and you get an automatic invite to potential like the biggest stage of Empires tournament there is. It seems it's a bit too lenient for my liking, to be honest.
I agree with you, and I feel like it's pretty lucky that the 7 invited players are pretty much all top 8.
Yeah, like it was like really bad if you had like a couple of players that were like potentially like the 15 or 16.
Back-T would probably lose round 1 3-0 against any of these guys, and probably against the guys who will qualify. So it's good in that sense that he didn't take the invite.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he probably would have been a big mismatch.
Mm-hmm. I think just moving to like semi-finals and then you have to win 2 rounds, it removes a little bit more of that random aspect because top 4 last time was Jordan, Hera, Viper, Yo. So like, very close to being top 4. So it just removes a little bit more of that random aspect. It gives you a little bit more to fight for in terms of getting your invite. I feel like that'd be a lot fairer.
I wouldn't find that shocking.
Yeah, I think that'd be like a nice compromise. I don't think you have to have any more than 4 invites for a major tournament these days. So
maybe if T90 insists on like he wants to continue, like maybe a bit of a carrot for making the top 8. You could have basically the 4 players that lost in the quarterfinals skip a round or 2 and Hidden Cup 6 qualifier, so they like start a bit later. Could be something to do. So there's a bit of a carrot to incentivize, like, not just like, I qualified for Hidden Cup, I'll take my money and leave it there.
That's a good idea.
Could be something to do. The player, it's just a idea. So I was just suddenly thinking like, maybe you could do this. Potentially,
you could make it like easier for them to qualify, as like a reward for, doing well in the events in the first place.
Yeah, I feel like I would be super happy just by going. You can certainly look at different things, but like the way it's currently working is not, to me, it's not really good enough, to be honest. And that's just me being brutally honest. Let's see how it changes. I'm not the only one thinking these things. Hera's thinking the same thing. He released a video yesterday, was it? Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
I can't remember what it was titled. Let me just pull up the thumbnail here, and the thumbnail says Hidden Cup 5 settings are pretty bad, and it's quite an honest video. I think like the thumbnail has a little bit of a shock value where you're gonna like click on it. There's like obviously he's aiming for that with the thumbnail, or his editor is. But honestly, the points that he does make are pretty well reasoned and kind of thought out in terms of like talking about the maps and the Civ. The big one for me was the Civ draft. And we have like so many civs these days and only have like 3 bans each. And it's like you really need a lot more bans than that to really get out, like, because nearly every map has like at least multiple, like 2 or 3 really good civs that are kind of like like that are a lot stronger than like the rest of them anyway on that certain map. So 3 each doesn't seem to be really doing it for me. I think if I was going to do a 1v1 tournament again, I would probably at least be given 5 or 6 bans each. Potentially more.
I want to say something about this video. I don't think this was the like. I get where Hera is coming from, but I don't think this was the most constructive way of addressing criticism for the settings of the event.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, the thumbnail. I don't think the thumbnail is very professional. The settings are pretty bad. And like I know he defended himself in the video like preemptively, saying that he wanted to make a video rather than talk to T90 about that. And I don't agree with that. I feel like it would have been more constructive to approach T90 with that rather than make this video like that. I think some of the points he brought are fair criticism of the settings, but I also think the form in which he made that criticism could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a little bit because like so the event is benefiting the players, and it feels a bit, how do you say, unfair of to it looks like he uses the popularity of Hidden Cup to create like a little bit of a buzz and that's just my opinion,
on his own channel.
Yeah, it's like he uses that popularity of the event, the build up, the anticipation of the event to make this like, to create content for his channel. And that seems a bit disingenuous, because like he's creating content and then at the same time offering criticism for the event. But I think you do either one or the other, and I feel like if he was genuine in his criticism, he should have done that like more privately or like with the other players in T90. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's just my yeah.
I feel like that's totally fair. Like, if you're ever like hosting an event, it's probably not the way you want feedback to be delivered. Like, we don't know what if he's given him a heads up that he's doing it or whatnot. If it's been given a green light, I don't know when only they two would be able to answer that between them. It doesn't seem like that's happened. That's my own personal opinion from like the kind of like judging the situation. But I totally get what you're saying. It's probably something that's better done in private. And if you want to make content around the event, maybe should be a bit more positive.
Yeah,
perhaps.
because ultimately you're gonna benefit from the event, and it's
especially as an invited player, you're already benefiting big time. I kind of feel a lot like Tausis feels about it.
I hadn't really given it that, like, to me, I hadn't thought about that too much, which is kind of surprising from my perspective, like in organizing events. But yeah,
looking at it, at least for me, it was like I saw the thumbnail. I was like, "Oh, what is this gonna be now?" And then the thumbnail almost felt a bit detached. I thought he was gonna talk about the format and other stuff, and it was just talking about. It was the majority of the video was about the maps, which I think he should have used. There's a channel, right, where people can give their feedbacks on the map, and it's been there for 2-3 weeks now already, and it would have been way much better there because then he could give his opinions on the maps, and then other people can weigh in as well. Yes, we agree. No, we don't. Or like we don't. Like, could have been a way better exchange, and it's not just like, because now it's hard to kind of engage. He made a video, right? And how do you reply to somebody who made a video? Where if it was like in what's it, the map feedback discussion? What's it called? Yeah, map feedback discussion channel. there could have been a better, I was like, positive feedback loop. Is that the term? My English letting me down, yeah. And then like, and everyone can weigh in, and then maybe potentially the maps can get, like, be improved from that. At least that's what I think. And then the Civ stuff, I don't know. I get why there's not that many bans. You kind of want people to be able to prepare stuff and like have your best. In an ideal world, have your best civs available, so that for event like this, because like let's say, I'm preparing for this specific strategy, and then on say cross with pick a random civ with goths, and now suddenly they get banned. What do I do now? So you want players to have the options.
It's always a
this.
delicate balance to strike there.
Yeah.
Because you obviously want to try to give players option to ban the civs that they judge are OP, or to have this flexibility, but also you want them to be able to prepare specific strats, especially in Hidden Cups. Like I think in Hidden Cup 3, we had the Celt strategy on Cup that was like a very popular move, and then on Hidden Cup 4, you had Hera and Leary kind of preparing counter strategies to Celts, like with the Britannic pick on Cup, and also on Bay, Hera picking Italians to counter Mongols and winning most of the games on that. So yeah, like you want that to be possible for the players to do, to prepare specific civilizations for a specific map. Yeah, and have that in mind. Have that option always available.
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone that doesn't like seeing the same civ matchup over and over again for a tournament. But it's a hard.
That's also fair enough.
It's a hard thing. That is a hard thing to balance, like you said. It's hard. It's not easy.
Definitely not.
Main event starting in. What's the start?
So the main event is gonna start February 25th and last till March 3rd. It will be streamed on T90's channel, and I think everyone else streaming is open as well, obviously.
And then we got
there will be 2 viewing parties, one in Miami in the US and one in London. I think maybe one in Germany was in the works or something.
So the one in Germany is not happening. The one in the US is in Fort Lauderdale.
Not happening. Okay.
I think they've got a few tickets sold. But the one in London is sold out. 250 sold out in 2 days. So
nice.
I think maybe some people are coming from Europe since the one in Germany is not happening. So maybe.
Yeah, because it's pretty easy to fly to London from I don't know, anywhere else in
anywhere in Europe
and so on.
Yeah, so that'll be a good time for who's going.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Let's move on to our look ahead for 2024. Since the last time we talked was in 2023, we might as well have a little look at what's going to be coming this year in the community awards. I did do a prediction question, and my favorite ones I've kind of picked up on. Someone's predicted that freaking Andy's going to win an S tier tournament. That is going out there. But if he can
not technically have done that already, having won a death match.
DM doesn't matter.
Bro. Yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying. If we take Viper's DM S tier wins away, he has less S tier wins than Hera since the game.
I take them away. I don't think it matters. It's a different game mode.
That's fair enough.
A very different game mode.
Very different, because Empire Wars.
Because like Empire Wars is different, but it's kind of similar. But DM is just totally different. If Andy improves the same way he improved this year, it could be possible. Who knows where his ceiling is? It'll be interesting to see. And talking about improvement, somebody has predicted that pathing will get fixed, and they put 6 dots after it. So that's telling me they're probably not too hopeful. mean, pathing,
Ye of little faith.
yeah, pathing has been a very, like, that has been a bit of a joke in the WoW prediction. It's like pathing will get better, pathing will get worse. It's probably
I
like
mean, both are
they're probably the same.
equally probable.
Yeah, like, well,
Yeah.
pathing. With this last patch, I was like Hera's one of them, or like other players releasing a video a day after. Pathing is so much better.
New and
They're like, and they're being they're not kidding on. They're being serious that the pathing is better than like a weekend.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's actually not better. It's got worse. And
It's crazy.
it's kind of
I've
funny
lost track.
how you have that like initial impression of like, oh, this is 100% better, and then when you just like you scrape a little bit deeper with your fingernail, and then you're like, oh, it's actually not at all.
it was new and improved.
Until it's not. I did have another one here that I wanted to shout out. There's a few weird ones with my name on it. It's like Paradox will make a return. Paradox will become a hot tub streamer. I don't really want to think about that one. But there is one
So
here.
that's definitely off the table.
That's off the table. That is 100% off the table. But one of the, or quite a few people have predicted that Red Bull will be back. And we'll touch on that in a second. Do we have our own wild predictions before we move on to this potential rumored Red Bull tournament that might be around the corner?
Well, I kind of already
Okay,
said
I have-
Illyria is winning Hidden Cup, right? But I have another one.
Go for it.
I think Hidden Cup on T90's YouTube is gonna smash everyone's expectations.
You gotta give us a
As
number.
in-
You gotta give us a number, Panda.
More than on Twitch. Let's go wild. Like, you'll have more people watching on YouTube live than on Twitch.
Oof.
That's
Bold.
I know that's bold.
If
This is
anyone
what-
can do it, it's
It's meant to be wild.
Yeah.
It's meant to be wild, Tarzan.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I've been
Yeah.
thinking about this because I kind of that's why when I suggested it, it's like I'm gonna say this. I've been thinking about this for about a week now, maybe a bit more even. Even Elise said, if you watch the Town Center podcast, he said if he knew he was going to get that good numbers on YouTube, he would have put in more effort on it. And I think he had like 8K people watching on YouTube, and he doesn't really have at least over
Wow,
the
that's
past
true.
year. His YouTube presence hasn't been the best, right? Over the last year and a half, and T90 has a really big one, and I think it's gonna be big there, and I'm excited to see it. I'll be watching. I'll be one of those viewers. It tends to be a little bit better view. Watching quality for me at least here in South Africa is a bit better on YouTube than on Twitch. So I'll be enjoying the people. I'll be enjoying the show there. But that would be my wild prediction.
I feel like it's a pretty
That's
good
a pretty
one.
wild prediction. I like it. Yeah. Okay, so I don't have like any wild prediction. I'm gonna say there will be an S tier team game tournament in 2024.
Ooh.
I mean, actually,
And it's a pretty sad. That is like a wild prediction.
yes. Will we? Ooh. It is kind of
'Cause
sad.
I feel like it's more likely that there is not.
I think there will be, and I think it's going to be DWC.
But will it get S tier?
Depends on the money and if anyone's co-hosting.
I mean, it was 23K last time. It was almost S tier. Could have been S tier.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the discussion around DWC wasn't so much to the money, but more the kind of like pedigree behind the event. But like, there's certainly the groundwork's been placed there now, 100%. I've tried like you two guys have said two really good ones, and I don't know if I can top something like that. How many more civs are we gonna get in the games, guys? Can we?
5.
Could we do an over under? I think.
Ooh. So if they are okay, let's say there is a new DLC coming this year, 2 new civs. What would be your predictions?
I'll say 3 no civs.
Okay, but which civs?
That's a good question. There's been people chatting that could be like the Chinese could get dismantled and go a little bit. We've not. When was the last time we had an African one? It's been a while, right?
Those
Oh,
African kingdoms.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah,
was
that's like
2014,
2016,
I think.
2015, maybe. Yeah,
A very
even
long time
earlier
ago.
than that. Even.
I mean, there's no point really talking about it because we'll just end up with another kind of like,
Can be anything.
we'll end up with another couple of off branch of the Mongols, no doubt.
If I have to say DLC predictions, 2 this year, adding a total of 5 civs between them.
Okay.
Maybe we see a rework in one of those of something, but I don't see them doing
I don't see them
that.
touching the Chinese.
Exactly. It's an OG civ.
Like they know Age of Kings and Conquers civilizations kind of off limits. They can't touch those civs. I could see the Slavs being maybe split into, I don't know, like the Russians and like other civs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like even and I see Africa as like a logical place to add new civs.
Can be creative
Like
there,
around
I think.
Don't
like
worry,
the Ghana Empire. Yeah.
we're gonna get more Eastern European ones. It's all good. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna
Getting
say
very cluttered.
yeah.
Are we finally
it will
getting
be.
the Swiss?
Oh my god.
People have been asking about that for years.
I'm gonna say there's gonna be 6 new civs.
Okay. So
I think only 2.
3 and 3.
Maybe like
Oh.
North America civs.
At least
Like
six.
okay.
Hang on.
Wild
At
prediction.
least 6 new civs.
Ooh.
You're gonna give us like a Mississippi civilization with a new architecture set. 2024 marks the return of new full architecture sets and not just castles and wonders.
Ooh.
Oh,
And they've been missing for a while.
Yeah.
So that was very prevalent back in Vidbly. If you go and watch the older videos of the unique architecture, it's quite weird to watch actually.
but that was actually, I think, that got added at a late point in HD, kinda.
Yeah, it was in HD as well.
Yeah, like they I think they split it up so you could mod each civ's
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
architecture, and it carried over to Rubly with all the kingdoms, and maybe that's something they could potentially integrate again.
Yeah, potentially.
No, I'm not talking about an individual architecture set for a civilization, but like a
Something-
new types. You know, like we have Western Europe, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, East Asia, Southeast Asia, etc. I'm thinking, okay, like maybe we have like a new architecture set, and we have 2 or 3 civs for that architecture set. Maybe like North America civs, like I don't know, South African, Sub-Saharan African civs or whatnot. I don't know.
I feel like it'd be a nice change. Keeps the game fresh.
Yeah. I'd like to. Yeah.
And mentioning Wall Kingdoms, let's go on to our big kind of look ahead for the year. That is the recent news of Red Bull, and it changed, excuse me, their Discord channel got changed to a TBA. Now, I was the only one that pointed this out on Twitter. Not everyone's an English speaker. I think a lot of people didn't realize what TBA actually meant. So it means to be announced, which pretty much, like, for me, that's 100%, that's a slam dunk. There's going to be a next Red Bull, like, event, no matter what, because that's what TBA means. But if you don't know what TBA means, you might just see the profile image change and you're like, oh, something's going to be happening. But when you actually fully understand what TBA means, you're like, okay, something is definitely cooking here.
And it's not TBD, it's like TBA. So there's something that's gonna happen. That's
As
for
in,
sure.
in this before June, I think. Like, I think that's how fast we're gonna get
Ooh.
it.
Well, we don't
At
have.
least,
What do you think the format is gonna be? Is this gonna be one event?
I think it's gonna be
Is it gonna be
Nineville.
a series?
One event, Nineville.
Oh, so no Empire Wars.
I think the hype's gone.
Mm.
I think the hype is gone. I don't see them trying to recover that. I feel like that they had.
Interesting.
I feel like they had the closing event for that with Legacy, and I feel like the doors closed on Empire Wars, in my opinion.
Mhm.
maybe it's going smaller events like not big tourneys. You'll see Empire Wars, but there's no appetite for high level Empire Wars anymore.
It's just gone. It's just totally gone. I'm afraid.
Yeah, and also it's definitely got to be Red Bull 7, I assume, right? Because they did not change the Discord name. So it will be like could we say like a soft reboot of the series with just a different setting, like 9 will start potentially, or even 3 will start. Maybe they go with that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll be interested to know if they like rebrand it slightly and start one again, but I don't think they will.
I think it will be a return to Empire Wars.
cool.
That's my prediction.
Okay, that I feel like that's a wild prediction.
I think that that's their brand, and I think it's not too hard to adapt to Empire Wars if you're a top player. So that's my prediction. I don't know. I don't know the settings and everything. I'm guessing it's gonna be a LAN, or they're gonna try to do that. And I look super forward to it because Red Bull has always been really amazing.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll see.
I think a big question around that as well is, will they try and rope in Nelly to cast some sets? I know he's gone now, but he's been part of all of them, right? And like trying to get him back as a guest commentator could be fun. And
Yeah,
we don't know when it happens. Obviously, I think if it's in the next like 2-3 months, we won't see him, but maybe late after that, and then maybe would be interested in something like that. That would be it will be to be determined, I guess. And then it's also the question, if he does not return, that opens a spot, right, for someone else to step in or to step up. And who's that gonna be? And will they like
I'm rubbing my hands
seize
together.
the and will they seize this opportunity? Because imagine, you get a Red Bull Warrior gig, right? That'd do pretty well for your for your commentating stocks to be able to get there.
For sure.
Yeah, it would be an interesting thing to keep tabs on. Like, in one mind, I have like, okay, if Nelly's inactive or relatively inactive, and he's back for like Red Bull, I think that'd be like quite. I feel like that would generate a lot of excitement. But then it would. My other side of me is saying like, okay, he's not very active. Does he deserve to be there? Which is like, I have that two sides of that as well. But I feel like both of them are like pretty fair things to say to a certain degree. I would expect him to be there though, regardless.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
I think we're just missing Nelly already.
Too soon.
That's
Okay, I think that's a wrap for episode 3. We're closing in on the 3 hour mark, so we better not get over the 3. That was a long one, guys. I said it was going to be a long one. It
Yeah.
certainly was. And I guess maybe we try and do a pre-hidden cup so we can actually have
Pre-hidden cup, yeah.
we can do predictions of who's gonna win, if it's gonna be Jean Bro or we'll have no idea.
Yeah. Jean Bureau is like Dave. It's been established.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right.
what
Well,
could be?
yeah.
I will be in a less
I think
cluttered situation.
we'll have to try and work out when the next one will be and when's the best natural time.
Yeah.
Hopefully not as
Hidden
long.
cup, you said?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, but we'll find out. We'll see you all in the next one. Much appreciated. See you then.
Yeah.
Bye.